Chapter 341. It's interesting to fight with a supernatural flying ability. Lying on the ground, Chu Hui looked up at Lu Qing and repeated Lu Cheng's words blankly. For a moment, he even forgot that the coldness in his body had disappeared. He forgot to turn over and stand up, forgetting his usual demeanor. He fought with me for so long because he wanted to experience and enjoy the unique experience of fighting with a supernatural flying ability. Thump. 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 Chu Hui's heart expanded and contracted, spurting out streams of hot blood to disperse the remaining coldness. However, he didn't feel warm at all. Instead, he felt like he had sunk into a 10,000-year-old ice cave, feeling the darkness, depression, and coldness around him. Is this the taste of despair? Is the gap between me and Lu Qing so big? Even when facing him who hasn't recovered from his internal injuries, I can only be killed within seconds? His previous self-esteem had turned into sarcasm and slaps in the face. Hee, how could there be such a free lunch? Lu Qing didn't say anything. He cupped his hands, turned around, and walked to the stone steps. To be honest, Chu Hui did have the combat strength of a professional 7th pin. If it were another weak professional 6th pin who hadn't recovered from their internal injuries, it would be more troublesome to deal with him. However, Lu Cheng's unique skills just happened to restrain him, so he could kill him within seconds. It was like fighting a fighter who had just entered the dance stage and didn't have supernatural abilities. For example, although Lu Qing couldn't detect the operation of his supernatural ability with the ice mirror, Chu Hui didn't rush at him recklessly. He would still make a move to kick him, so there was a prelude. This made it easier for Lu Qing to predict and respond in advance, so Lu Cheng's strange change of direction had little effect. Similarly, the long-range attack ability of the army formula within a certain range solved the problem of how to hit him. Moreover, Chu Hui didn't have a corresponding secret defense method, and his spirit wasn't strong enough to resist a little like a professional 7th pin fighter, so the result was self-evident. In other words, it would be more difficult for Lu Qing to fight a normal professional 7th pin fighter in the dance stage than Chu Hui. Of course, the rules of the challenge tournament also limited the opponent's performance. If Chu Hui was allowed to use weapons, things would be completely different if he gave him a bow, a crossbow, or a hot weapon in the air. Watching Lu Qing leave the arena and walk to the seats, the surrounding audience fell silent. The overwhelming boos had already dissipated, leaving only the lingering sound. Booing the other party at this time was more like booing oneself. Walking along the road back to the starting point, Lu Qing saw Yan Jika walking up to him. She clenched her fist and shouted with a smile, "Qing, you did a great job. You're really amazing." She was responding to the earlier, "You played great," and "You played great," jokes. Smiling tacitly, Lu Cheng's mood became more and more cheerful. After bumping fists with the girl, he high-fived Lin Ke, Li Mao, Kai Zhongming and the others. Everyone was very happy. Hai Yuan was weaker than Sanjiang. If they could get past this hurdle, it would mean that the door to the nationals was right in front of them. I really want to celebrate, but reason tells me that I can't get carried away and look down on Hai Yuan, Sun Jian said with a smile. Good that you understand. Keep a low profile and accumulate good karma. Lin Hua glared at him. While everyone was talking and laughing, Gizershur waved his hand and said, "Let's go back to the locker room first. Don't you feel embarrassed celebrating in front of so many sad classmates?" Of course. Kai Zhongming replied without hesitation. That being said, he still followed behind the rest of the team and entered the locker room in the oppressive atmosphere that pervaded the entire venue. Well, he felt embarrassed to celebrate, but he was more afraid of provoking the impulsive classmates and being trampled by thousands of people. In the stands, Yan Shaoling was like an abandoned quail. For a moment, she wanted to cry but had no tears. She wanted to celebrate but had to look around, trembling in fear under the gloomy faces of so many people. Alas! She sighed deliberately and lowered her head with Mujinyan, pretending to be sad. Don't hit me, we're on the same side. January 5th, 3:45 p.m. In the martial arts arena of Haiyuan Academy. Lu Qing looked at the fierce battle in the arena. He leaned over to Yan Jika's ear and said in a low voice, "Your brother doesn't want me to fight today, does he?" Yan Jika rolled her eyes and said, "My brother left the whole Chu Hui to you in the last match. Isn't that enough?" It was Sun Jian's turn to be the vanguard in the match against Haiyuan Academy. However, he still didn't have a good time. At the beginning of the match, he met Qing Du and Jin Sha, who were in the dance stage and supernatural ability, who were easily defeated. Then Lin Ke showed what he had learned. After 3 minutes of fierce battle, he defeated Qing Du with death sentence again. In the next 2 matches, he faced 2 different professional 9th pin fighters. At first, he seized the opportunity to defeat one of them with the outburst of the dance stage. Now, he was fighting hard with his exhausted body. While Lu Qing and Yan Jika were whispering to each other, Lin Ke used mercurial balance to find his opponent's weakness. He moved his arms quickly and threw out meteor force. Bang! Lu Yaqian's blood and qi churned and rushed straight to her throat. Her internal organs seemed to be trembling violently along with her muscles and tendons. She wanted to exert strength with her arms, but no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't raise them. She could only watch as the other party's fist hovered beside her temple. The referee raised his right hand and said with the sound of dantian, "Round 4, Lin Ke wins." Final result, Songqing University Martial Arts Club wins. Lin Ke withdrew his fist and gasped for breath. The sweat on his forehead dripped down, but there was a flash of joy in his tired eyes. Lu Qing and the others jumped up together and high-fived each other with smiles on their faces, as if they were saying, "Happy New Year," to each other during the Spring Festival. National competition, we're finally here. They didn't have the excitement and ecstasy after a hard battle, but they had a sense of certainty and beauty. After returning to Songqing and entering the campus, Kai Zongming suddenly suggested with a smile, "Why don't we have a meal together? Celebrate." Songqing University Martial Arts Club, which hadn't entered the national competition for many years, did have a reason to celebrate. "Sure, where should we go?" Lu Qing immediately agreed. After answering, he realized that he wasn't the one making the decision. He quickly looked at his master embarrassedly. Let's go. Of course we should celebrate. Don't forget to order a few bottles of good wine for this old man. I'll pay for it from the martial arts club." Geezer sure agreed with a smile. Everyone cheered and began to discuss where to have a meal. In the end, Little Ming made the final decision. "Let's go to the food stall. It's a little low class, but we can have a good celebration." After inviting Xu Rui and her shooting team, the martial arts club members went to the food stall near the old campus. They found a spacious place and ordered barbecue, dry pot, goose lips and other dishes. The table was full of food. After opening a bottle of wine for Geezer, Lu Qing and the others poured juice and raised their glasses. Under the camera, they clinked glasses with each other and shouted their emotions in unison, "National competition! National competition!" Their voices were loud and youthful. Seeing this scene, Xu Rui couldn't help but recall the beautiful life in college. She felt sad. She really wanted to be reborn to the day when she first entered the school, to savor and enjoy the past bit by bit. Once they graduated, they would go their separate ways. Many things in the past and many friendships could never be returned. In the wanton celebration, the noisy Lu Qing and the others at the next table were dissatisfied. A young man with a tattoo on his arm came over and shouted, "What's the noise?" "Sorry, we'll be careful." Lu Qing blushed and apologized immediately, feeling that he and the others seemed to have violated public morality. The young man looked around and sneered, is it enough to just pay attention? 7 or 8 men at their table stood up together. Lu Cheng's mouth twitched. Then how about this? With a flick of his wrist, he flung out a ball of crimson flames, causing it to explode in front of the tattooed young man. The flames leaped up and illuminated the other party's face. The tattooed young man was stunned and didn't know what to do. Until his companions came over and pretended to be mediators, they helped him back. Lu Cheng ignored the astonished eyes around him and took back his hand. He sat down again, picked up a beef skewer, and started to eat. We don't want to cause trouble, but we're not afraid of trouble. Cheng, this doesn't seem like your style. Yenjika leaned towards him with a smile and whispered. Why not? Lu Cheng asked, amused. Yenjika rolled her eyes, gritted her teeth, and said with a smile, I thought you would keep a low profile and crack the cement floor to scare him back. But you directly used the supernatural ability of fire to show off. That's too flamboyant. It's not like you. The one who knows me best is Ku. In fact, at the beginning, I also considered cracking the cement floor without anyone noticing. This is relatively subtle and low-key. However, after serious consideration, I gave up on this idea. Lu Cheng sighed. Yenjika blinked her eyes and asked curiously, why? Lu Cheng answered bitterly, you'll be fined if you crack the cement floor. Once bitten, twice shy. Pfft. Yenjika turned her head and almost laughed out loud. The dinner lasted until 8:00 in the evening. When everyone was full, they raised their glasses and shouted again, national competition. National competition. In the following days, Lu Cheng and Yenjika entered the busy exam season. They reviewed exams, and worked together. On the 16th of January, before they had one last exam left, another event began on time. That was the drawing of lots for the final round of the National University Martial Arts competitions. 16 strong martial arts teams in 8 divisions would fight in groups. In the office of Songqing University Martial Arts Club, a group of people gathered again. They turned on their computers and connected to the internet, waiting for the live broadcast to begin. Shu Rui also came here, faithfully recording the most primitive reactions. In her opinion, Songqing University was only a little bit worse than Shanshan University, a little bit worse than the capital, and the same level as Huahai and Guangnan. They were strong enough to reach the top 4, but they didn't have any historical records and couldn't be seeded. The specific results to a large extent depended on the result of the drawing of lots. After all, there were also tough guys in the other teams. Chapter 342. In the unique broadcasting room, the hostess in an evening dress walked gracefully to the center of the room. She thanked the guests in front of her and invited Mr. Fang Jinjue, the president of the National University Martial Arts Federation, to come to the stage. The big screen behind her began to play highlights of the 16 qualified teams. Mr. Fang, you look more hale and hearty. Seeing Fang Jinjue come to her side, the hostess smiled and greeted him. Fang Jinjue, with white hair and a youthful face, was very good-looking. He smiled and said, "Little fan, I remember you said the same thing last year. Isn't that right? It means that you are getting more spirited and younger." In terms of eloquence, Ten Fang Jinjue were no match for the hostess, Fan Leki. She changed the topic and said with a smile, "Mr. Fang, I think this year's national competition will be more exciting than before." "How can you be so sure when the lots haven't been drawn yet?" Fang Jinjue asked back. "It's obvious. Shen Huanqing from Guangnan and An Chaoyang from Huahai will graduate in July. Are they willing to be suppressed by Peng Leyun and leave the University Martial Arts Circle in glory? They were the top professional 7th pin fighters in last year's national competition. This year, they are making a comeback and may be able to go further. Besides, with the growth of geniuses like Huahai, Piao Yuan, Guangnan and Li Xiaoyuan, they are likely to win the championship. Fan Lucky said with great familiarity. Piao Yuan from Huahai was 1 year older than Lu Qing and Lin Quebec. What's the difference between this and the previous 2 years? Fang Jinjue asked knowingly, with deep wrinkles at the corners of his eyes. Fan Lucky said with a smile, but I think the gap between them and Shanbei capital has narrowed. And this year, it's not just them. The martial arts clubs of Hudong University and Guiyang University were able to advance to the next round as the first in their own division, suppressing the traditional first place. It's enough to show that they're extraordinary. They're all candidates who could create an upset and enter the top 4. In addition, don't look down on the second-place team in the division. There are 2 dark horses this year. One is Mingdao University, which almost made Guangnan lose the game. The 3 He brothers have finally shown their brilliance, and there is still room for improvement in their tactical formation. In front of the computer screen, Lu Qing and the others nodded slightly. They had all heard of Mingdao University, which had almost created a miracle. Mingdao University was not a strong martial arts school. In the past, it was almost the same as Songqing University, which was in decline. It was not until He Fang, the eldest of the 3 He brothers, entered the school as a professional 9th pin martial artist. The following year, the twins He Erlong and He Santai also entered Mingdao University. Although they were only grade 1 at the start of the semester, they soon reached grade 9 in October. The development of the 3 brothers couldn't be compared to Lin K's, but they couldn't be underestimated either. He Fang had entered the Dan stage in the second half of his 2nd year and was now in his 3rd year. He Santai had succeeded in force concentration before the district competition, leaving only He Erlong who was still at the top of the professional 9th pin. It was true that they were not strong enough to cause trouble to Guangnan University. However, as a martial arts aristocratic family, He clan had inherited the heaven and earth mortal world sword formation. Since the beginning of their cultivation, the 3 brothers had been cultivating tacit understanding and practicing this formation. Therefore, they could barely display the beginner-level formation in front of the inhuman level. For them, 1 + 1 + 1 was definitely greater than 3, or even 4, or even 5. In the beginning, the 3 brothers, who were only at the professional 9th pin level, couldn't do anything to Zhenhuanqing and were defeated by Guangnan's advantage in numbers. When He Fang and He Santai both entered the 8th pin Dan stage and the formation's power multiplied, they stood out and almost defeated Guangnan. In short, no matter how strong their opponents were, the 3 brothers would definitely apply for the special competition system and fight side by side. This reminds me of a line. Listening to the hostess Fan Lucky's introduction, Kai Zhongming said with a smile, "1-on-1, you fight us alone. Gang fight, the 3 of us gang up on you." In the midst of Talker's cold joke, Fang Jinjue looked at Fan Lucky and said, "Mingdao is indeed a dark horse, and there's a lot of room for imagination. There are still 2.5 months before the final round. He Erlong has the chance to enter the Dan stage. If he succeeds, the heaven and earth mortal world sword formation formed by 3 professional 8th pin fighters in the Dan stage is worth looking forward to. Mr. Fang, you also agree with me, don't you?" Fan Lucky deliberately said in a coquettish voice, "And the other dark horse is even more worth looking forward to. Songqing University Martial Arts Club is listed as the favorite to win the championship. Shanbei and the capital's popularity index is 10 streets ahead of the other teams. Well, Shanbei is even leading the capital by a large margin. Mr. Fang, what do you think of Songqing University Martial Arts Club?" Lu Qing showed the combat strength of a weak professional 6th pin, and Lin K is more than enough to be a top professional 8th pin fighter. Besides, with their speed of improvement, they'll probably go further in April, or more than 1 step. Fang Jinjue said with a smile, "I've been paying attention to Songqing University. I can responsibly say that they are definitely strong contenders for the top 4 in this national competition. As for the championship, it's not impossible. For example, Shanbei and the capital will encounter each other in the semi-finals. Mr. Fong, you really think highly of them. Fan Leki suddenly sighed and said, it's a pity that Songqing University is not a seeded team, nor is it the first in the division. They can only be ranked in the third tier, and will definitely encounter the strong teams in the first two tiers. If they are beaten black and blue before they can advance, it will be very dangerous for them in the quarterfinals. Lu Cheng, Yen Jike, and the others were a little worried. However, the rules of the draw had already been announced, and they had more or less accepted the reality, so it didn't affect their mood. Little Fan, don't say that. You can say it the other way around. Songqing University is in the third tier, and they're not the only ones who have a headache. Whichever group draws them will be the group of death. Fong Jinjue joked. You're right. Sun Jian laughed out loud. Give a thumbs up to Mr. Fong. Kai Zhongming said exaggeratedly. With his arms crossed in front of his chest, Lin Kai stood quietly in the corner with a suspicious smirk on his face. Lu Qing and Yan Jike looked at each other and saw the smiles on each other's faces. Since there was no way to change the rules, then let's just enjoy the rules. We, the newborn calves, are not afraid of tigers. It's the other teams that should be afraid of them. Fan Leki and Fong Jinjue talked about the key teams with the help of the dialogue, and then briefly introduced the rules of the draw at the end. There were 3 tiers in the draw. The first tier was the top 4 of the previous competition, and they would enter groups A, B, C, and D as the seeded teams. The second tier was the first in their division, and the third tier was the rest of the teams. Now, let's invite Mr. Fong to draw the first tier team for us. Fan Leki pointed at the box in front of her. The first one is the seeded team of Group A. Fong Jinjue put her hand into the box and took out a round ball. She showed it while reading aloud, Capital College. Group A, Capital College Martial Arts Club. Group B, Guangnan University Martial Arts Club. Group C, Shanbei University Martial Arts Club. Group D, Huahai University Martial Arts Club. After drawing the first-tier team, Fong Jinjue cupped her hands and left the stage. Fan Leki invited another guest to draw the second-tier team. Group A, Guiyang University Martial Arts Club. Group B, Jinfeng University Martial Arts Club. Group C, Zhuge University Martial Arts Club. Group D, Hedong University Martial Arts Club. After the second tier, there would be 8 teams in the third tier. 2 rounds would be drawn according to the order of Groups A, B, C, and D. At this moment, Li Mao and the others, who had been leisurely watching the show, subconsciously changed their sitting posture and slowed down their breathing. The guest stepped on the stage, exchanged a few words with Fan Leki, and put his hand into the box. Group A, Hishi University Martial Arts Club. Group B, Moshang University Martial Arts Club. Group C, Huatian University Martial Arts Club. Group D, Group D. The guest paused and suddenly became louder. Songqing University Martial Arts Club. Wow, the group of death is here. Fan Leki exclaimed. With Huahai and Hedong. Lu Qing was neither surprised nor disappointed. For this reason, it didn't matter which group they drew. Although Hedong might be a little stronger than Zhuge University, it was limited. Not bad. We didn't draw Shanbei again. Li Mao exhaled, and the others echoed. The guest reached out his hand again for the second round of drawing. Group A, Hanbei University Martial Arts Club. Group B, Iron Capital University Martial Arts Club. Group C, Shanghai University. At this point, the final result was self-evident. Fan Leki opened her eyes wide and muttered to herself, "Super group of death." The guest dutifully took out the last ball and showed it to the camera. Group D, Mingdao University Martial Arts Club. In Huahai University Martial Arts Club, after hearing the result, the tall and indifferent Xing Jingjing instinctively looked at the club president not far away. And Chaoyang had long, artistic hair. He was quite good-looking and had a bit of scholarly aura. His appearance was quite outstanding, but his eyes were always sleepy and slightly squinted, as if he was dozing off. Songqing University. He only repeated the name in a low voice. Beside him, Piao Yuan, who looked like a monk with a shaved head, grinned. Songqing University, Hudong, Mingdao. TSK, I'm really looking forward to it. His facial features were ferocious, and he unconsciously changed the order of the draw. Inside Hudong University, the atmosphere was quite tense. Obviously, no one had expected to draw a supergroup of death. The leader, Yu Ji, shook all the fat on his body and clenched his fist. Songqing University, he looked like a sumo wrestler. His fat was piled up but not soft. It looked very greasy and bouncy. In a male dormitory of Mingdao University, He Fang and He Erlong looked at each other with a dignified expression. He Santai lowered his head and typed furiously on the screen of his mobile phone, engrossed in the game. Phew, supergroup of death. Sun Jian exhaled a mouthful of foul air. What are you afraid of? We've already beaten Shanbei. Do you think they're stronger than Shanbei? Lu Qing looked around and took the initiative to speak. Since Shanbei is not stronger than us, we have a chance to win. Since we have a chance to win, there's no need to feel disappointed. Anyway, it's our first time to participate in this competition. We're not afraid of losing face. Didn't we say before that there's only one word for this national competition? He paused and then shouted together with Lin Ke and Yen Jika, fight. Fight as hard as you can. After shouting the slogan, Lu Qing saw that Xu Rui was filming something else. He hurriedly held Yen Jika's hand and made eye contact with her. He didn't hide his expectation of facing a strong opponent. This April, the national competition. Chapter 343. The cold star was hanging high in the sky, and the wind on the lake was chilly. Lu Qing pulled Yen Jika's left hand and put it into his warm pocket. Thinking about going to the capital in April and the national competition, I feel a little excited. After watching the lot drawing ceremony, he couldn't calm down and urged his little fairy, who was in a similar state to him, to take a walk by the lake. There are still more than 2 months to go. No matter how excited you are today, it's useless. Yen Jika pursed her lips and teased him. I know. But some reactions can't be controlled. Lu Qing took a deep breath of the fresh, moist air and replied with a big smile, after this wave of excitement, I'll relax and practice martial arts during the winter break. I'll strive to make greater progress before the national competition. Lu Cheng's body was not tired, but his mind was. He urgently needed a break to relax his mental tension so that he could set off again. You're worth teaching. Yen Jika pretended to be an old man. She looked up at him and said, I'll go to Jiangnan on the 3rd day of the 1st lunar month. I'll stay at my grandfather's house for a few days and see if I can help you get information about the 9 words formula, if it's not a secret of the sect. I didn't mention it, but Kush still remembered it. Lu Qing narrowed his eyes and couldn't stop smiling. He felt so warm in his heart, as if he had drunk a bowl of hot soup in a world of ice and snow. He laughed and said, it doesn't matter if it's a secret of the sect. When I become the son-in-law of Shushan study, I'll be half a family member. Then I'll be able to get access to things that don't involve the unique skills of the fighting sect. You're dreaming. Yen Jika rolled her eyes and glanced at her boyfriend. He didn't know if she was saying that he was dreaming of becoming the son-in-law of Shushan study or that he could get access to the secrets of the sect other than the unique skills of the fighting sect. As a person, you have to think about the future. Only then can you live a meaningful life, Lu Qing said happily. Holding the girl's hand, they slowly walked forward. Beside them was the calm and sorrowful surface of the lake. He paused for a moment and then let his thoughts run wild. When the time comes, I'll have to make a trip to Moshang to wish my master and senior sister a happy new year. I'll also burn incense for all the patriarchs. I'll take the opportunity to learn a few more unique skills of the ice sect. If I'm lucky, I might even gain something else. For example, Senior Queen of Thought and the others' insights on the cultivation of the army formula, the forwarding formula, and the swordsman formula, as well as the latest research results on cultivation. Yo, now you know how to go to the ice god sect to pay a New Year's visit. Yenjike joked with a smile. Of course, it's all thanks to your good teaching, Coach Yen. Lu Qing praised sincerely. Now that he had formally become Lu Cheng's disciple, he couldn't just make a phone call to say hello like last year. Cuckoo had repeatedly reminded him about this. It's good that you understand. How are you going to thank me? Humph, you will definitely say that there is no need for thanks between us. Yenjika's eyebrows relaxed and her eyes lit up. How about a kiss or a massage? Lu Qing suggested a way to express his gratitude. Yenjika glared at him, feeling both annoyed and amused. Are you thanking me or taking advantage of me? How can you call it taking advantage when it's between a boyfriend and girlfriend? Lu Qing chuckled. Before Yenjika could blush, he suddenly remembered something and hurriedly asked, didn't you say that the last exam was originally on the 19th, but it was moved forward to tomorrow? Yeah, what's wrong? Yenjika blinked and looked at her boyfriend blankly. Have you told Empress Dowager about this? Lu Qing asked. Not yet. Yenjika vaguely sensed her boyfriend's intention. She looked at him suspiciously and asked, why do you ask this? My exam is finished tomorrow. Why don't we go to Gaofeng for a couple of days and go back on the 20th? I didn't have the chance to accompany you during the youth tournament. Lu Qing suggested excitedly. After the youth tournament, he had planned to date his little fairy girl in Gaofeng for a couple of days. However, he was summoned to Moshang by Geyser. Yenjika looked up and replied in a light tone, yes, I am. Okay. During the New Year's Day holiday, she and Qing didn't go out for a date because of the exam. Seeing Yenjika agree without hesitation, Lu Qing was very excited. He hurriedly said, let's sit over there. I'll change the tickets and book a hotel. You can ask Gu Shuang if she has any good recommendations for Gaofeng. Okay. Yenjika took out a tissue and handed it to her boyfriend. After cleaning up, they sat down next to each other and started to work. Suddenly, Yenjika hesitated and said, Qing, Shuang said that her house is empty and she invited us to stay there. She was used to calling her best friends by their nickname in front of Lu Qing. That's not good. I feel uncomfortable. Lu Qing subconsciously found a reason to object. Yenjika tapped on the screen and keyboard a few times. She turned her head and looked at her boyfriend with a faint smile. She puffed up her cheeks and snorted. Cheng, you've changed. You weren't like this before. What's changed? Lu Qing was confused, his face full of confusion. You wouldn't answer like this before. You would say, do you want to go? If you want to go, then let's stay at Gu Shuang's house. Yenjika smiled and raised her chin. Her long white down jacket made her look very pretty. Lu Qing was almost speechless. He laughed and said, I'm just giving you my opinion. I'm not making a decision. In the end, I still have to listen to you. Yenjika combed her long black hair that was blown by the wind and snorted. I think you have a ghost in your heart. For some reason, when she said, have a ghost in my heart, she suddenly blushed. She pretended to look to the side and changed the topic. Actually, I'm so stupid. Why did I ask Shuang what good recommendations there are in Gaofeng? Why? She doesn't know these. That's impossible. Lu Qing blurted out in surprise. That's not it. Think about it. If I told her that I was going to Gaofen with you instead of sleeping in her house, what would she think? She would definitely think the wrong way. How embarrassing. Yenjika pouted and explained with slight annoyance. A girl's mind is really full of twists and turns. Lu Qing thought for a while and said, "Why don't you sleep in her house and I'll stay in a hotel outside? Or tell her that your period is here." According to Yenjika's recent cycle, it would be tomorrow. Yenjika pursed her lips and tilted her head. She suddenly burst into laughter, as if hundreds of flowers were blooming in front of Lu Qing. Her eyes were gentle and her dimples were enchanting. "I've already told Shuang that. Already told Gu Shuang about my period." Lu Cheng's mouth was half open. He was both angry and amused. "I was almost tricked by Yenjika again, humph. You asked me to ask her. You made me laugh so much," Yenjika said with a red face. "That little girl Gu Shuang actually asked me to take precautions and asked me when I had sex with Qing." Without waiting for an answer, she said, Shuang said she would treat us to a meal at a club. The dishes there are in the top 3 in Gaofen." "Okay." Lu Qing agreed easily. He handed the phone to the girl and said, 2 rooms with big beds, Mingqi International Hotel." He had a good impression of this 5-star hotel. "Let's share a room." Yenjika hesitated for a while and then blushed when she saw Lu Cheng's surprised eyes. She turned her head and said, "You will definitely use the excuse of rubbing my belly to squeeze into a room, won't you? Won't you?" Yes. I'll definitely do that." Lu Qing smiled and gave her a way out. Of course, he did think so. If you want to squeeze into one room, it's a waste to book 2 rooms. Yenjika had an expression of, "I was right, wasn't I?" but she was biting her lips lightly and looking at the night sky with a bright moon and few stars. After the exam on the 17th, Lu Qing had a lunch with Zhao Chang, Kai Zongming, Qiu Zhigao and others. In the afternoon, he and Yenjika set off on their journey back to Xing province. But their destination was not Shushan, but Gaofen. They arrived at 7 p.m. and met Gu Shuang, who was dressed fashionably in black. They went to the private club near Weiyang Park in Gaofen with her. The clubhouse was luxuriously decorated and illuminated by bright lights. The style of the clubhouse exuded the word luxury. Nouveau riche style. Yenjika commented in Lu Cheng's ear in a low voice. "As long as the dishes are good." Lu Qing smiled back. Gu Shuang, who was watching them from the side, said in annoyance, "Can you two stop showing off your love every second? You have to understand the feelings of a lovelorn child." In front of her was a waiter who led the way. "Lovelorn? You dumped him, didn't you? How many times have you dumped him?" Yenjika teased her best friend. At this time, Lu Qing noticed that many of the guests passing by were martial artists with vigorous qi and blood. Some of them were even introverted. They were in groups of 3 to 5 and seemed to know each other. After passing through the hall, they went somewhere. So many people today. Gu Shuang also noticed something was wrong. This was a private club. The waiter smiled sweetly and said, "Miss Gu, this is a gathering of the martial arts circle in Gaofen. As you know, our boss is very close to the martial arts circle." A gathering of the martial arts circle in Gaofen. Gu Shuang glanced at Lu Qing subconsciously. Her best friend's boyfriend was the champion of the youth tournament. It's almost the new year. Every circle will have a gathering. The waiter kept his mouth shut and didn't say more. It's almost the new year. There's still half a month to go. Gu Shuang shook her head in confusion. At this moment, they heard a loud chatter. Looking back, they saw a group of martial artists coming in from the entrance of the club. They were surrounding an exceptionally handsome young man and were talking about something. This young man was no stranger to Lu Qing. He was Zhang Zhutong of the Divine Fire Club. Oh, it's a small world. Lu Qing couldn't help but laugh secretly. This scene was very similar to the first time he met Zhang Zhu. Both of them were watching from the perspective of a bystander. However, that was then, and this was now. His mentality and feelings were completely different from the last time he met Zhang Zhu. Zhang Zhutong listened to the people around him with a smile on his face. Occasionally, he would turn his head and say a few words. Suddenly, he seemed to have sensed something and turned his head subconsciously. He was surprised to see a familiar face and the figure he couldn't forget standing quietly in the dim light. Facing his gaze, Lu Qing smiled slightly and nodded. Chapter 344. Lu Qing nodded and turned around leisurely. He held Yanjika's hand and continued to follow the waiter. Lu Qing didn't know much about the martial arts circle in Gaofen, so he didn't need to greet them or delay the late dinner. Brother Zhutong, what are you looking at? Beside Zhang Zhutong, a pretty girl with flat bangs asked curiously. She moved her head closer and followed Zhang Zhutong's line of sight. However, all she saw was a couple holding hands and disappearing around the corner. Apart from the girl's beautiful back, there was nothing special about her. No, nothing. Zhang Zhutong withdrew his gaze and gave a negative answer subconsciously. The others didn't care about this little episode. They still surrounded him, chatting and performing. Zhang Zhutong walked a few steps and couldn't help but look back, even though he knew the girl had already left. He's back. It's winter vacation now. But why didn't he come back to Shushan? What is he going to do in Gaofen? Is he just passing by, or is he trying to get involved? Under the warm light, the waiter set the table and filled the cups with tea. He pushed the door open and waited for the dishes to be served. Who are you kidding? How can there be a year-end party this early? Gu Shuang complained. She picked up her phone and dialed a number. You and Zhang Zhutong are quite faded. Yanjika took the opportunity to tease her boyfriend. Lu Qing deliberately sighed and said, "It's a small world." The two started to chat. After a few minutes, Gu Shuang ended the call. She raised her eyebrows and gossiped with great interest. I knew it's a year-end party for the martial arts circle in Gaofen. What kind of party is it? Yanjika asked cooperatively. Gu Shuang laughed. Gaofen is a sister city with the famous European city Brudale, right? The mayor of Brudale is here with people from all walks of life for a business visit, including the martial arts delegation. Accordingly, we have to organize some martial artists to receive them. The Divine Fire Club has a good relationship with the management, so they're in charge of this. What do you mean by our Gaofen city? Shuang, you've just moved to Gaofen a few years ago. Have you forgotten that you're from Shushan? Yanjika laughed and teased her best friend before getting back to the topic. They're gathering people in the circle for this. Yes, this is a good thing. Maybe we can get some cooperation opportunities. Gu Shuang explained casually. She then urged excitedly. Ku, why don't you ask your Qing to join in the fun? He can show off in front of the foreigners. It's so. What? I'm not from Gaofen. Lu Qing couldn't help but laugh. He rejected Gu Shuang's suggestion without hesitation. Yanjika pursed her lips and chuckled. I've heard that Brudale is one of the origins of martial arts in Europe. There are many powerful masters everywhere. I'm sure there are many good fighters among the young people there. Don't you want to see the fighting skills of a foreign country? Kind of. But we'll have plenty of chances in the future. There's no need to join in this boring fun. Lu Qing explained his thoughts. The mainstream martial arts system in Europe and America was essentially the same as in China, but the details were different. Both systems focused on body refining and controlling the mind. However, they didn't have force concentration or body refining Big Dan. Instead, they took a different path. When they reached the physical invulnerability stage, they trained the root pulp internally and connected with heaven and earth. What do you mean by, we'll have plenty of chances in the future? Yenjike tilted her head and asked in confusion. Lu Qing grinned. When you study abroad, I'll definitely go there from time to time. Maybe I'll even stay for a while. There'll be plenty of chances to see foreign martial arts. You're thinking so far ahead. Yenjike's eyes lit up. Stop, stop, stop. Can you two stop showing off your love? Gu Shuang, who was ignored, raised her hand and said, can't we have a nice chat? No. No. Lu Qing and Yenjike looked at each other and answered in unison. In a hall, Zhang Zhutong was thinking about the startled glance and Lu Cheng's sudden appearance in Gao Fen's place. He was absent-minded for a moment until someone waved a hand in front of his eyes and pulled him back to reality. Brother Zhutong, what's wrong? Are you worried about tomorrow? A pretty girl with flat bangs asked with concern. Hearing this question, the other martial artists in the gathering all looked over. Not really worried. I'm more looking forward to it, Zhang Zhutong answered with a smile. This kind of martial arts exchange was different from the normal challenge tournament. They had to consider the issue of face. What the higher-ups meant was that it would not be good to lose too much, but it would not be good to win too much either. The selected martial artists had to be representative and hierarchical to ensure that they only had a slight advantage over the opponent. Yeah, I've only seen foreign martial arts competitions on the internet. I haven't really seen one yet, a martial artist beside them chimed in. Amidst the echoes, the pretty girl with flat bangs reminded him with concern, we don't have to worry about the inhuman mighty ones since the seniors will deal with them. But I heard that there's a talented young man named O'Block in the group. He's only 20 years old, but he's already as strong as a top professional 7th pin or a weaker professional 6th pin fighter. The evaluation system abroad was different from that in China, so it was impossible to compare them directly by rank. After losing to Lu Qing, Zhang Zhutong had been enduring hardships for half a year. He had made great progress in his martial arts and was considered to be one of the best in the 7th pin. However, after watching the battle between Lu Qing and Peng Liyun, he was shocked again. It took him 2 or 3 weeks to recover. When he confidently called for a gathering in the martial arts circle to welcome the Brutale delegation, he met Lu Qing unexpectedly. His confidence was shaken. I'll try my best. There's still a chance to win. Even if I lose, I won't lose too badly, Zhang Zhutong answered carefully. While they were discussing the details of the next day, in another room, Lu Qing and Yenjike were tasting the top 3 dishes in Xing province that Gu Shuang had mentioned. They felt that Lu Qing lived up to his reputation. They ate so much that they couldn't wait to finish everything. For example, the Kung Pao chicken. The meat was tender but not rigid. It was smooth and fragrant. After eating and drinking, they were driven back to the hotel by Gu Shuang and checked in. It was already dark. Lu Qing and Yenjike opened the door and turned on the lights, hand in hand. This was the first time they had slept in the same bed without another room as a cover. It was the first time they had slept in the same bed. The light was dim and the warmth was overflowing. They felt like a couple returning home together. Nowadays, the lights in hotels are getting dimmer and dimmer. You can't save electricity like this. Lu Qing exclaimed. Yenjike was about to say something when her expression changed slightly. She lowered her eyes and looked a little pained. You're on your period? Lu Qing asked with concern. Yes. Yenjike was used to discussing this kind of thing with her boyfriend. I'll go change my clothes, brush my teeth and wash my face first. Okay, I'll wash the pot first and make you some brown sugar ginger tea. Lu Cheng's hands and feet quickly got busy. After Yenjika finished the tea, got into bed and curled up on her side, he quickly brushed his teeth, took a shower, changed into his pajamas, and lay down beside her. He put his hand over her thin clothes, slid a little into her pants and pressed it against her lower abdomen. "You're quite self-aware." Yenjika praised him with a smile. She didn't feel any pain. Before her voice died away, she suddenly exclaimed, "Ching, why is your hand so warm?" "Hee hee. This is the breakthrough of my power of blaze. Ever since its second awakening, I've been tempering and controlling it. I want it to be used in daily life like the frost's supernatural ability. Well, after a few months of hard work, I finally succeeded. How does it feel?" "Yeah," said Lu Qing proudly, showing off. "It's meaningless to have a supernatural power without a domestic version." 32 likes. Yenjika slightly pursed her lips, with a faint smile on her face. Her voice became very soft. "Cheng, where are we going to play tomorrow?" Lu Cheng was in a good mood after being praised. He smiled and said, "Two plans. First, we'll go to the wildlife park in the north of the city. Second, we'll take bus number 7, number 19, number 35, number 56, and number 79 to relax and wander through the most unique streets of Gaofun. We'll try the various delicacies along the way and slowly savor this city." "I choose the second plan," Yenjika said without hesitation. "It sounds fun, I knew it." Lu Cheng's heart was full of tacit understanding. While chatting and warming, Yenjika slowly fell asleep. Her brows were knitted sometimes, as if she was enduring the pain in her dream. Lu Cheng tenderly reached out and smoothed her brows. As the night grew darker, he propped himself up and kissed her on the corner of her mouth. "Good night, my dear." Her delicate body fell into his arms, without any lust. The next morning, Lu Cheng woke up on time. Looking at the dark sky outside the window, he felt the girl's body curled up in his arms. Breathing in the warm fragrance that pervaded the air, he only felt his heart was calm and peaceful, filled with joy. He hugged Yenjika tightly and suddenly saw her wake up. He heard her ask in confusion, "What time is it?" 5:30. "You go back to sleep. I'm going to do my morning exercise. I'll bring you breakfast when I come back." Lu Qing replied softly. Yenjika retreated a little reluctantly. Suddenly, she was stopped by something hard. Her body was slightly stiff. Lu Qing smiled embarrassedly and said, "Some reactions can't be controlled just because you know it. As long as you're healthy, you'll be like this in the morning, not to mention when you have a little fairy sleeping beside you." He repeated what he said the day before. "I feel that you guys are so weird." Yenjika softened her body and muttered. She struggled to get up and said, "I'm going to do my morning exercise too. It doesn't hurt as much." Just as they were kissing and saying good morning to each other, the delegation from the famous European city of Brudale arrived at the airport in Gaofun. Chapter 345. After the morning exercise, Lu Cheng and Yenjika went back to the hotel. They planned to have breakfast on the bus ride to Gaofun. After taking a shower and tidying himself up, Lu Qing waited for a while and saw Yenjika coming out of the bathroom. She had just changed her hairstyle. Her sideways bangs hung down, which made her eyes and eyebrows more beautiful. Her temperament was purer, gentler, and radiant. A long white down jacket, black leggings, fluffy snow boots, a light pink knitted hat, and delicate silver earrings entered Lu Cheng's eyes one by one, making him feel youthful and quick-witted. Even though he had long been accustomed to his girlfriend's appearance, he couldn't help but take a look at her again and again. "Do I look good?" Yenjika lowered her eyebrows and asked with a little pride. "Did you put on makeup?" Lu Qing stared at the girl's pink and glossy lips. As a straight man, the most common way to tell if a girl had put on makeup was to look at her lipstick. If it was thick, it meant heavy makeup. If it was light, it meant light makeup. If he couldn't tell, it meant no makeup. Of course, with Coach Yan's teaching and daily influence, his knowledge had increased day by day. He was no longer so superficial. I did. Today is our big date. How can I not take it seriously? Yenjika raised her chin slightly and looked at him with radiance. Hearing this, Lu Qing laughed out loud. He really wanted to grab his little fairy just like that and give her a good bite. Yenjika seemed to have sensed something from his eyes. She hurriedly took a step back and waved her hand weakly. Makeup is troublesome, don't mess around. Yes, yes. Lu Qing put away his thoughts and said, I just feel that your face is too thin. Humph, I'm fat. Yenjika puffed up her cheeks. Look, I'm fat face ko. Hold it in. I can't hold it in. I can't hold it in. Lu Qing suddenly took a step forward, pulled the girl over and kissed her. You. Yenjika's protest stopped abruptly and was blocked back in her mouth. She clenched her fist and hit Lu Qing a few times. But as they kissed, she slowly closed her eyes and hugged her boyfriend back. She forgot about the makeup. They hooked their lips and kissed lightly. Their breathing gradually became irregular. Are you still not going out? As the atmosphere became more and more intense, Yenjika tilted her head back, glanced at Lu Qing with tears in her eyes, and broke free from his embrace. Actually, it's not bad to laze around in the room all day. Lu Qing looked at the girl's moist lips and smiled. Pervert. Yenjika cursed, feeling both annoyed and amused. She trotted into the bathroom and quickly touched up her makeup. Then she stood by the door and waved, let's go, let's go. All right. Lu Qing walked over and held the girl's hand. They walked out of the room and the hotel. They strolled to the nearest bus stop and waited for bus number 7 to arrive. Since it was the weekend, there weren't many commuters. Even though there were quite a few old people, the bus wasn't crowded. Lu Qing put in a coin and held his little fairy's hand. They found a seat at the back of the bus and sat down. The bus swayed and gaofed as it traveled through the city. The scenery on both sides of the bus gradually changed from the original high-rise buildings to the past. Buildings built in the last century appeared in front of Lu Qing and Yenjika's eyes. These were all factory areas of enterprises in the past. Later, when the factories moved out, they used the vacated land to build a residential area for employees. Lu Qing had done his homework. He pointed at the scenery outside the window and said to the girl, there is a university and a high school nearby. It's quite lively around here. Let's go eat a private home cuisine. Private home cuisine? Yenjika asked in surprise. Private home cuisine for breakfast? When it came to dates, she wasn't the type to simply enjoy them. After the first few times, when Lu Qing was making plans, she would help to look over and give her own opinions. She was very involved. However, last night, her stomach really hurt so badly that she didn't have the energy to discuss. My private home cuisine is in quotation marks. You'll know when we get there, Lu Qing said with a smile. The number 7 bus stopped at the bus stop. He hurriedly pulled Ku up and said, we're here. It's time to get off. Yenjika was full of curiosity and expectation. She followed Lu Qing like a little deer with innocent eyes. They got off the bus with light steps, crossed the crosswalk, and entered an old residential area. In the residential area, Lu Qing led her around and around, asking passers-by where building number 4 was from time to time. After passing row after row of buildings, they finally found their well-hidden destination. There was no elevator here. They walked along the corridor and came to the second floor. They saw the door on the left open and smelled the alluring aroma from inside. Noodle house. Yenjike sniffed and breathed in the smell in the air. Yes. This old lady used to be the chef of Gaoyun Noodle House. She retired and moved here with her husband. Under the encouragement of her children, she bought the house opposite and started a noodle house without a signboard. Well, there are many similar places in the surrounding residential areas, mainly for students and teachers who don't like to eat in the cafeteria. It's impossible to find it without a familiar guide. Lu Qing introduced the private home cuisine in front of them. Gaoyun Noodle House was a time-honored restaurant in Gaofen. It was the kind of restaurant that was recommended by tourists. Unfortunately, it got worse and worse. The locals didn't like to go there anymore. Only tourists could coax them. Yenjike opened her eyes wide and blurted out, "How did you find it?" Shuang didn't mention it yesterday. When I was making a guide, I saw someone mention it on the internet. I remembered Fatty Jiang said that Huang Qing was studying in the nearby University of Technology. So I found his QQ and asked for details. Lu Qing answered with a little complacency, "The old lady has a weird temper. Not only does she not please the customers, but she also gives them a hard time. She will give you the order of special dishes, noodles, and soup. If you don't follow her order, she will be very unhappy. The weirder her temper, the better the business." Yenjike bit her lower lip and smiled. Yes. People are so cheap. Maybe they think that the more temperamental a person is, the more capable he is. Lu Qing said self-deprecatingly. He pulled Yenjike into the house. There were only a few tables in the 2 bedrooms and the living room. The old lady was sitting in a chair, watching TV and ignoring the door. Their hair was already gray, but they were still hale and hearty. Because breakfast time was different, Lu Qing and Yenjike didn't wait. They each ordered 2 bowls of noodles and 10 dumplings. The old lady didn't say anything. She went into the kitchen and fiddled for a while. Then she brought the food over and said sternly, "First, eat the beef noodles, then the boiled vegetables, then the dumplings, and finally the sanxian noodles. Drink the soup. There's really an order," Yenjike said in a low voice when the old lady returned to her seat. The 2 started to eat with great interest. They ate step by step according to the order and felt that it was really good. Especially after the beef noodles, the boiled vegetables were really refreshing and sweet. Lu Qing came in high spirits and left satisfied. He looked at his phone, looking for the bus stop of Route 19. At this time, Yenjike's eyes turned up. After thinking for a few seconds, she suggested excitedly, "Qing, why don't we not follow the guide? I feel that you will be very tired." "How can we do it if we don't follow the guide?" Lu Qing asked in confusion. Yenjike smiled like a flower and said, "Let's be casual. We'll get on whichever bus we see. We'll get off wherever we see. Anyway, we don't need to think in advance. We don't need to care about the result. We'll just do whatever we want and see where we end up. Is this a fateful tour?" Lu Qing was excited. He didn't object, and it was impossible for him to object. It seemed to be quite interesting. The 2 of them walked out of the neighborhood and stopped at a random signboard. They waited for a bus that they didn't know which route it was. After getting on the bus, they continued to sit in the back row, hand in hand, looking at the street outside as they retreated. They talked leisurely and chatted. When they felt like it, they would casually find a bus stop and walk around nearby. Then, by fate, they would board the first bus stop they saw at the first bus stop they saw. They didn't think about where they would end up in the end, nor did they think about the purpose of the next stop or what they would eat later. They let go of their minds and wandered around leisurely, coming and going slowly. From time to time, they would put their heads together and take a selfie. The commercial district, a park, a bridge by the river, a Buddhist temple. Unconsciously, they wandered around a lot of places and decided to have lunch at the next restaurant they saw. Lu Qing and Yan Jike passed through the alley and came to the main street. They saw a cafe at the same time. Cafe. Do you want to eat there? Lu Qing asked with a smile. Why not? There's food in the cafe. Yan Jike answered with a relaxed body and mind. The cafe's business was quite bad, and the environment was not bad. Lu Qing and Yan Jike ordered a lot of food and ate happily. They were surprised to find that the quality was quite good. When Lu Qing was paying the bill, Yan Jike put her hands on the glass counter and casually asked the proprietress, "Your family is doing well. Why is your business so average?" The proprietress was a very charming lady. She smiled bitterly and said, "I don't know. Maybe the residents here don't like the Western style. Do you live nearby?" "No." Yan Jike answered in a light tone. "Then are you here for business?" The proprietress had plenty of time to chat because the business was bad. "No, we're just passing by," Yan Jike said with a smile. "Okay." The proprietress confirmed that Lu Qing had paid the bill and asked casually, "Just passing by. Where are you going?" "Where are we going?" Lu Qing and Yan Jike were stunned for a moment. Then they turned their heads and looked at each other. "We don't know." After saying this, the two of them held hands and turned to walk to the door. "Where are we going?" The proprietress was at a loss, watching their backs disappear into the street outside. Lu Qing and Yan Jike got on and off the bus casually without thinking about the past or the future. They enjoyed the purest, most carefree and most leisurely present moment. In the vast sea of people, they only felt that they had each other. Wherever they went, there was beauty and certainty. The clouds were leisurely, and the bus was swaying. Lu Qing and Yan Jike were sometimes quiet and sometimes excited, walking freely in Gaofeng. When the lights were turned on, they held back their laughter and got on the bus again. They didn't know where they were going. The reason why they held back their laughter was that the restaurant they chose was very bad, which left a deep impression on them. However, even if it was a failure, it was still a happy thing to eat together. "Where are we now?" Lu Qing looked at the darkened scenery outside the window and asked. "How would I know?" Yan Jike answered with a smile. Suddenly, her eyes lit up as she saw a familiar building in the distance. The Beatles Stadium. Gaofeng Martial Arts Stadium. "Ah, after a long day, we're finally here. What a coincidence!" Lu Qing exclaimed in surprise. "The lights are on inside, so there's probably a competition. Here, he won the first championship in his life." "Yes, yes." Yan Jike nodded happily. She pulled Lu Qing to the back door of the bus and waited for the next stop. "Let's go. I'll treat you to the competition," she said cheerfully with a raised voice. In the Gaofeng Martial Arts Stadium, the lights were bright and the atmosphere was heavy. Zhang Zhutong looked solemnly at the arrogant Oblak in the arena. His blonde hair fluttered in the wind as he walked up the stone steps. Chapter 346. So annoying. It's not open to the public. Yan Jike pouted as she tried to buy a ticket but failed. Lu Qing glanced at the gate guarded by security guards and encouraged her with a smile. "Do you want me to lead you to do something bad? Find a place to crawl in. What kind of competition is not open to the public?" "No, I'm a law-abiding good kid." Yan Jike had come here on a whim. Seeing that she couldn't enter to watch the competition, she gave up the idea. She rolled her eyes and said, "There is a dessert shop here that is very good. Shuang and I have tried it. Their feng shui is very good. Come on, let me take you there." Lu Qing said without thinking, you can't eat cold food during your period, right? I can watch you eat it. Yenjika raised her chin with a smile. And there's cake and stuff. All right then. Lead the way, big sister. Lu Qing had forgotten his original purpose and said with a smile on his face. Today was a casual day. Follow your heart and follow your fate. O block wins. O block wins. O block wins. Similar words echoed in the stadium again and again, making the selected audience more and more depressed. However, they still had to pluck up their spirits and cheer for their opponent in line with the friendship between the two cities. Zhang Zhudong's body was still trembling, and his face was pale. It seemed that he had not only consumed a lot of energy, but also suffered a certain injury. He broke free from the nightmare of failure and glanced at the rostrum. Governor Luo Zhong, Mayor Chao Jincheng, and the others looked gloomier than the other. Zhang Zhudong's heart sank. He could only hope that the other fighters could defeat their strong opponents and save his face. Even if he couldn't win, he couldn't lose miserably. However, he also knew that the possibility of his wish coming true was very slim. It was all O'Block's fault for not following the rules. He actually fought 3 matches in a row. Not only did he defeat Han Jifei and Qiu Shan, but after a long battle, he even managed to injure himself with a single move. Originally, it was supposed to be a different fighter after each match. Now that the strongest fighters on his side had failed, the Gaofen martial arts group would have to face the following fighters from Brudale. Zhang Zhutong gave up the starting position and prepared to fight against the third young fighter from Brutal's delegation. He wanted to win and keep the situation under control. However, he encountered an unreasonable guy. The most likely possibility was that all the young fighters on his side would be defeated. Zhang Zhutong thought bitterly. O'Block actually had a freakish physical strength that exceeded his own level of physical strength. Below the inhuman stage, abnormal physical strength is too advantageous. Another martial artist beside him sighed. Hearing this, Zhang Zhutong wanted to respond with a polite smile, but no matter how hard he tried, he could not squeeze out a smile. Is it delicious? Yenjika rested her chin on one hand and looked at Lu Qing with sparkling eyes. Lu Qing unhurriedly scooped a spoonful of Snow White and put it in his mouth. He savored it for a few seconds before saying, "It's delicious. It smells like milk powder when I was a kid. But this one is cold and tastes better. I've appraised it. It's not bad." Yenjika smiled proudly. She poked a piece of cake with her spoon and ate it slowly. Both of them hadn't eaten enough because of the terrible dinner, but now they had a good appetite. Outside the window, the city lights were shining brightly, reflecting their shadows on the glass. The night was getting darker. At the gate of the Beetle Stadium, the security guards made way for them. Governor Luo Zhong, Mayor Chao Jincheng of Gaofen, and others accompanied Mayor Brudale Dawkins and his entourage out. They chatted politely as they waited for the vehicles to approach. At the edge of the delegation, the tall O'Block stretched his arms and legs and looked around casually. His blonde hair shone brilliantly under the light, just like the magnificent view of the sea at sunrise. Coupled with his handsome facial features and aggressive fighting style, he was widely known as the Son of the Sun. "The young martial artists of Gaofen are mediocre," said the black-haired Charles beside O'Block in the Brudale language. O'Block replied with a smile, "I heard that this is only the second-class city in China." He was implying that he agreed with Charles's assessment. "I'm disappointed." The brown-haired Johnny spread his hands. "To be honest, I feel the same way. After 3 rounds, it's still not enough. In Chinese, it's like..." O'Block flexed his arms and said in a foreign language, "Enough. Not enough. Not enough." The translator beside them listened awkwardly. He didn't know what to say, so he just maintained a professional smile. Not far away, Zhang Zhutong watched them talk arrogantly. Although he didn't understand what they were saying, he could still feel the contempt in their words. His mood became even more gloomy and depressed. He glanced at the governor Luo Zhong and the mayor of Gaofen, Chao Jincheng. They were both forcing smiles. It's getting late. Let's go. There won't be any more buses. Lu Qing pointed at the night sky outside. Yenjika followed his movement and looked around. She nodded lightly and said, "Okay." Today's random trip started with the bus. Of course, both of them wanted to end with the bus. After paying the bill with their phones, they pushed the door open and felt the chill of the winter night. Their spirits were instantly refreshed. Walking along the edge of the stadium, they strolled slowly to the bus stop in front of them. They only glanced at the hustle and bustle at the gate. Yenjika was in a good mood. She waved her hands and skipped along. Lu Qing followed her at a steady pace. What a beautiful day. The girl suddenly paused and looked up at the faint stars in the sky covered by the light. She closed her eyes and praised as if she was sleep-talking. The smile on her face was faint but didn't fade away. I think so too. Lu Qing held her hand. Yenjika opened her eyes and said as if she hadn't had enough. It would be perfect if there was a firework ending at the end. Don't buy it. I mean, it's up to fate. Lu Qing thought for a while and chuckled. He suddenly pulled back his hand and pointed behind the girl. Look, there it is. Yenjika was surprised and happy. She turned around abruptly and looked behind her. However, the night sky was still and the lights were quiet. There were no fireworks. She was stunned. When she was about to speak, she suddenly saw a ball of crystal white light fly into the air. Then, a red and violent fireball chased after it. Bang! The cold light exploded first and ice crystals fell. Bang! The flame exploded and shone on the ice crystals, making them reflect the clear light. In the air, the fireworks bloomed. The flowing light was dreamy and beautiful, illuminating the faces of Lu Qing and Yenjika. See? Tonight's ending fireworks. Lu Qing laughed. Yenjika's astonishment turned into surprise. The fireworks reflected in her eyes were so beautiful that people didn't dare to look directly at them. She bit her pink lips with her pearly white teeth and said with sparkling eyes, "Qing, what should I do? I want to kiss you." The fireworks attracted the attention of the crowd at the gate. Oblak was stunned for a moment. Then, his face lit up with joy. Superpower, a good superpower. He looked at the corner of the square not far away and saw Lu Qing and Yenjika, who were dating. His eyes flashed and he said excitedly, "I'll find that superpower user and spar with him. Just as well, I haven't had enough fun before." Thump, thump, thump. He strode forward and dashed towards Lu Qing at an extremely fast speed. The translator in the suit was shocked and stood there dumbfounded. He didn't know whether to follow or what. Oblak's teacher, the leader of the martial arts delegation, Mason Walker, shook his head and laughed. He instructed Janice beside him, "You go be the referee. Don't let Oblak hurt his opponent. This would affect the friendship between the two cities." The bear-like Janice didn't dare to delay. He stretched his long legs and chased after Oblak. Charles, Johnny, and the others followed with great interest, intending to watch from the sidelines. That superpower user was just trying to please his girlfriend on a date, and Oblak had set his sights on him. What bad luck! Zhang Zhutong, who had noticed their movements, looked blankly in the direction of the fireworks. His pupils suddenly shrank. Him. Lu Qing, who was waiting for his little fairy to initiate a kiss, felt the ground shake. He instinctively stepped forward and shielded Yenjika behind him. He saw a young blonde, blue-eyed foreign man running towards him with heavy footsteps. He felt several explosive points exploding on his wrists, arms, and torso. These explosive points seemed to connect into a strange tree. Strong, very strong. Lu Qing squinted his eyes and got into a stance. In his mind, he visualized a frozen river, a snowy plain, and a huge red sun hanging high in the sky. Tisk, spar, spar. Oblak shouted in choppy Chinese. Spar. Lu Qing took a deep breath and let the huge red sun fall from the sky and crash into the ice. Against a strong opponent, he had to give it his all. At that moment, Oblak's body suddenly expanded. He swung his fist in a condescending manner. Boom! The huge sun and the frozen river disappeared at the same time. Both fire and ice were extinguished by Lu Chang's fist. A mutated version of severe warning. Bam! Lu Qing blocked Oblak's hammer strike with a punch. At the point of contact, something seemed to collapse into a point, turning into a vortex. It stuck to Oblak's fist and neutralized the terrifying force. Boom! The vortex exploded, shooting out violent energy and infusing it into Oblak's body. Thud, thud, thud. Oblak took 3 steps back and fell limply in front of the referee, Janice. His eyes were wide open, but his body couldn't move for a moment. Thump. The sound of his strong body falling to the ground echoed in the surroundings. Charles and the others were stunned. Mason and Walker were stunned. Dawkins, Chao Jincheng, and the others were attracted to this scene as well. With one punch, Oblak, who had just dominated the martial arts arena, was knocked down. And he couldn't even stand up. He had just found a passerby superpower user to spar with. What's going on? Yenjika poked her pretty oval face out and asked blankly. I don't know either. He said it was a spar. Lu Cheng was equally confused. Seeing that the group of foreigners didn't make a move, he didn't want to bother with them. He held the girl's hand and continued walking to the bus stop. A spar. Why would he suddenly want to spar with you? Yenjika asked, puzzled. What's the point of a spar with a guy who can be knocked down with one punch? Lu Qing answered seriously, he's actually quite strong. It's just that his body is almost at its limit. Why would he want to spar with you when his body is almost at its limit? I don't get it either. I don't either. I can't understand what's going on in this foreigner's mind. Yeah, maybe this is the generation gap caused by the difference in culture and education. The two walked further and further away until they were out of sight. Seeing that the dating couple was about to reach the bus stop, the translator was in a dilemma. He didn't know whether to tell the Broodale delegation about their discussion. What are they talking about? Dawkins, the mayor of Broodale, glanced at Oblak who was being helped up and asked. The translator hesitated and answered, they said that Mr. Oblak is very strong, but he's too tired. That's why he's like this. Too tired. That's why he's like this. Dawkins, Mason, Walker, and the rest were silent for a while. When they looked up, they saw a bus coming and stopping in front of the bus stop. They saw the spectators from before rush into the bus. They saw Lu Qing with one hand in his pocket, pulling Yenjika onto the bus. They saw him squeezing into a space, one hand holding the bracelet and the other protecting the girl. The bus started moving away, leaving a group of quiet people behind. Chapter 347. The cold wind whistled past. Dawkins shivered and broke free from the indescribable feeling. He turned to look at Chao Jincheng, the mayor of Gaofen City. Chao Jincheng didn't show any abnormality. His expression relaxed as he smiled faintly. Young people nowadays, those who are capable are all very strong. They don't like to participate in social events like ours. The beautiful and dignified female translator hesitated for a few seconds, but in the end, she relayed the entire sentence to Dawkins and Mason Walker. She also clearly highlighted the two main points that Mayor Chow emphasized. First, the martial arts exchange match is part of the social event. It doesn't matter whether we win or lose. We don't care at all. Second, the young fighters here who are really capable have bad tempers. They didn't participate in the social event. If Chao Jincheng had said this before, it would have been a case of putting on a false front. But now, it was just right, just right. After hearing the translation, Mason Walker's expression changed slightly. Dawkins' smile stiffened a little. The whole delegation's high spirits and arrogance had dissipated a lot. Fortunately, several luxury buses arrived in time, allowing them to smoothly change the topic. They waved goodbye in a friendly manner. O'Block, who was supported by others, finally recovered. He murmured to himself, "That punch was very magical, very, very magical." The Broodale delegation looked at each other and pushed O'Block into the bus. Chao Jincheng didn't show his confusion until the convoy was far away. He turned to Wang Mingkong, the person in charge of Shinhua Club. Who was that? Wang Mingkong was a few steps behind and didn't see the fight. He was also confused and quickly looked at Zhang Zhutong. Zhang Zhutong sighed faintly and said, "That's right. It was Lu Qing." Lu Qing. Han Jifei and the others finally understood why that back was so familiar. Lu Qing. Ah, the champion of the provincial youth tournament. Luo Zhong, the governor in charge of martial arts affairs, recalled who Lu Qing was. No wonder, no wonder. Chao Jincheng was relieved and couldn't help but sigh. This young man is so considerate. Lu Qing was from Shushan, and his household registration had been moved to Songqing. He didn't work in Gaofen, so he had nothing to do with this city. If he showed up in the exchange match and was found out by the Broodale delegation, it would be very embarrassing. Fraud would affect the business cooperation between the two sides. Now that he had casually passed by and provoked O'Block to take the initiative to attack, the nature of the matter was completely different. This young man really has a sense of pride for his province. Mayor Chow thought to himself. As for the possibility that Lu Qing just happened to pass by, he didn't even consider it. How is that possible? Inform all the relevant people in charge. If the Broodale delegation asks about what happened just now, tell them that they didn't recognize the young martial artist, Chao Jincheng said to his secretary. Listening to their conversation, Zhang Zhutong looked at Han Jifei and the others with a complicated expression. From their eyes, he could see that they were sighing. At this moment, the words Lu Qing had said to him in the semi-finals suddenly flashed through his mind. I don't need others to judge my qualifications. 1 year later, 2 years later, 3 years later, I hope you'll still have the courage and confidence to say what you just said. His words were still ringing in his ears. Only half a year. Lu Qing and Yan Zhike got off the bus at the opposite side of Mingqi International Hotel. Swinging their intertwined hands, Lu Qing and Yan Zhike slowly walked through the pedestrian walkway into the hotel lobby, ending this casual date and the dreamy journey of the day. While Lu Qing was taking a shower, Yan Zhike had changed into a cute set of pajamas. Bunny ears dangled on her chest, swaying back and forth. She sat on the bed barefooted, picked up the vibrating phone, and chose to answer. Hello, Shuang Shuang Shuang. Why are you so late? Cuckoo, your Chang is not honest. Gu Shuang said directly. What's wrong with him? Yan Zhike asked blankly. Gu Shuang ground her teeth and said, Your Qing swore in front of me yesterday that he wouldn't join the Broodale delegation. But today he went to the Beetle Arena and beat up their new fighting star. Humph, a guy who doesn't keep his word. Ah. That's the Broodale delegation. No wonder there's a strong foreigner. Yenjike came to her senses and explained with a smile, he didn't mean it. We were on a casual trip today. We got on whichever bus we saw and got off wherever we wanted. Finally, we came to the beetle arena. And it was that foreign fighter who took the initiative to challenge Qing. Yo, you two are quite romantic. Gu Shuang said, half sighing and half joking. Then she said, what a coincidence. The fighter your Qing knocked down with one punch is called Oblak. He just defeated Zhang Zhutong, Han Jifei and Qiu Shan in the beetle arena, making those uncles, aunts and grandparents lose face. I see. Qing is saying that the foreign fighter's physical condition is close to the limit. Yenjike confirmed the details. But this guy is famous for his abnormal physical strength. I think he's close to the inhuman stage, just like your Qing. Gu Shuang revealed more information and said with a grin, bring your Qing to the party and make me proud. I have to let those guys know that I know such a powerful genius warrior. Go find one yourself. Yenjike scolded her with a smile. Gu Shuang chuckled and said, well, I have a new target today. I'm going to flirt with him. Can't you just be in a good relationship? What's the point of changing boyfriends? Yenjike couldn't help but say, if you meet someone with an extreme personality, you'll probably get into trouble. I'm not dating anyone. We broke up because we don't have feelings for each other anymore. Gu Shuang explained. Okay, I'll stop talking about you. Yenjike typed rationally. We'll talk about other things on QQ, okay? Gu Shuang hung up the phone. Yenjike held the phone and shouted subconsciously, Qing, I have something to tell you. After shouting, she remembered that Qing was taking a shower. The sound of water is so loud that he probably can't hear it. As the thought flashed through her mind, Yenjike noticed that the sound of water had stopped. The door of the bathroom was pulled open and Qing stuck his upper body out. What's up? Seeing his bare chest, rolling water droplets, and wet hair, Yenjike quickly closed her eyes and said coquettishly, can't you put on some clothes before asking? As she spoke, she squinted her left eye and glanced at him. She chuckled and said, nice body, feel free to touch me. Qing responded shamelessly. Humph. Yenjike turned her head and said, Shuang said that the foreigner you knocked down is the genius fighter from the Brudel delegation, Oblak. While speaking, she turned her head back and opened her eyes completely. She sized up the bathroom door openly. From the Brudel delegation, no wonder. Qing said in realization. Then he laughed and shook his head. It's a pity that we didn't have a proper match. I feel like I've swallowed too much. Brudel was a branch of the Mission sect, one of the main martial arts schools in Europe and America. They used faith to enhance one's willpower, control one's spirit, and control one's body. However, they did not practice force concentration or body refining Big Dan. Instead, they believed that there were 10 elements in the human body, corresponding to different symbols. When all of them were condensed, a tree of life could grow and reach the final crown. These 10 primordial essences were located in different parts of the body. Every time 3 of them were truly stimulated, different characteristics would be obtained. Based on one's own characteristics, it was like awakening a type of superpower, and they would complement each other, such as physical strength and strength. Compared to the Dan stage martial arts, this kind of martial arts school's absolute reaction ability was much weaker. It also lacked the smoothness and transparency of the whole body's strength. However, its explosive power was stronger and had a special bonus. Lu Qing had read about this in the Longhu Club forum. As for the details, he didn't know. Didn't you say there would be plenty of chances in the future? Yenjike smiled. You're right. Lu Qing went back to the bathroom. He dried his body and hair with a towel, put on his pajamas, and walked out. Approaching the bed, he looked at Yen Jika, who was lying down obediently. He chuckled. Who said she wanted to kiss me before? It was all interrupted by that guy. Not me, not me, not me. Yen Jika shook her head like a rattledrum with a smile in her eyes. Since you don't want to admit it, I'll kiss you. Lu Qing climbed onto the bed. Since you won't smile at me, I'll give you one, in the hotel where the Brudel delegation was staying. Oblak sat on the sofa in the lobby, lost in thought. Oh, Oblak, why are you like this? You fought 3 matches before you went to challenge that superpower guy. Come, have a few drinks and you'll forget. Black-haired Charles walked over with 2 glasses of wine. Johnny chimed in, my cute, beautiful, and smart little Sonny told me that you can't see anything from a sudden encounter. Have a good night's sleep. The sun will rise again tomorrow. Oblak suddenly stood up and rushed to the elevator. He went up to the 25th floor and knocked on the door of his teacher, Mason Walker. What's the matter? Mason Walker looked at his student with eyes as blue as the sea. Teacher, I want to challenge that superpower guy for real. Oblak blurted out. Mason Walker pondered for a few seconds and said, we've asked the gentleman in Gaofun. They didn't recognize that superpower guy. Or rather, they didn't want to tell us. Besides, we're only here for a few days. But Oblak still wanted to fight for something. Mason Walker smiled and said, such a powerful superpower guy will become more and more famous. As long as you're still growing, you'll definitely meet him one day. The martial arts world of China was also very important to foreign countries, but most of their attention was on the top professional competitions and title matches. I hope so. Oblak sighed dejectedly. Chapter 348. On the afternoon of the 20th, Lu Qing and Yen Jika arrived at Gaofun East Railway Station and took the train back to Shushan. After the casual date, they went to the wildlife park yesterday and observed the tiger form, monkey form, and other postures up close. They watched a few panda cubs basking in the sun and left a lot of photos that carried beautiful memories. This morning, they didn't go anywhere. After returning from their morning exercise, they stayed in their room. Sometimes, they kissed each other, and sometimes, they leaned against each other to watch shows on their tablets. At this time, the Brudel delegation's trip entered its 3rd day. Oblak was invited to participate in the Gaofun martial arts activities, but he was disappointed because he didn't find the superpower user who defeated him. The train sped through the mountains and across the fields. Lu Qing was sharing a funny post with Yen Jika when he received a call from Wu Ting, a high school freshman with a ponytail, from the VIP class during the summer vacation. Hello. Lu Qing answered the call in confusion. Sir Lu, when are you coming back to Shushan? Wu Ting asked in a light tone. What's up? I don't think I'll work part-time in the martial arts club during the winter vacation. Lu Qing thought the girl wanted to continue her martial arts training. It was not that he didn't want to earn money, by the way. After school started, he had no income except for the living expenses provided by his family. Although he had fewer dates due to the tight schedule, his expenses in other aspects had increased. For example, Queen of Thought and the others had worked out a prescription for the internal practice of the swordsman formula after a period of study and mastery. Geysershire had passed it to him. There were many similar things. After deducting the fixed amount provided by the ice god sect every month, the rest was still very valuable. In just a few months, Lu Qing had spent nearly 80,000 yuan. The strength of a weak 6th pin was not something that could be obtained easily. Plus the expenses of dates, gifts, and hotels, Lu Qing's savings had dropped below 200,000 yuan. Since he couldn't find a source of income, it was inevitable that he would want to work part-time to teach students. However, the martial arts club would be closed during the Chinese New Year. There was no such thing as a winter vacation class. Hearing Lu Cheng's answer, Wu Ting didn't feel disappointed. Instead, she said happily, "Can't I find you for no reason?" "Yes," Lu Cheng said half-jokingly. Wu Ting was speechless for a moment. After a dozen seconds of silence, she smiled bitterly. "I just realized that Sir Lu has a sharp tongue. It's not me who wants to find you. It's my dad who wants to find you." "Why is your dad looking for me?" Lu Cheng was even more confused. Wu Ting giggled and said, "My father owns a martial arts supplies company. He wants to invite you to endorse their shoes, so that they can expand beyond Xing province and into the whole country." Endorsement? Lu Cheng was shocked. How could he get an endorsement at his level? Wasn't it said that only mighty ones with physical invulnerability were qualified to have a share of this cake? Yenjika was attracted by their conversation. She turned her head and blinked her eyes in confusion. "My dad said that Sir Lu, you have a bright future ahead of you." "Yes, it's measured, not bright. You will definitely reach the peak of martial arts in the future," Wu Ting explained excitedly. "Our Sir Lu is amazing." Lu Qing replied conscientiously, "That's a matter for the future. No one dares to guarantee anything. If your father asks me to endorse him now, he will most likely suffer a loss. No, Sir Lu, you have a lot of attention now. We all watched the battle between you and Peng Liyun. My dad said that as a heavenly son of the era and a native of Xing province, you can definitely help him open up more markets in the province, and even open up channels outside the province." Wu Ting repeated, "Anyway, you don't need to do anything. You don't need to shoot commercials. You just need to wear the martial arts shoes that we specially made for you every time in the challenge tournament." Then it broke into pieces. Lu Qing said with cold humor. Wu Ting was speechless again. After hearing what the people around her said, she giggled and said, "What are you afraid of? Which martial arts shoes are not like this? As long as our design is cool enough, as long as you wear it well enough, as long as it can last a few rounds, there will be plenty of fashionistas like us who will buy it." She made fun of herself without any hesitation. "This is too sudden. I'm a little confused. I'll think about it and give you a reply." Lu Qing did not agree impulsively. Wu Ting smiled and said, "What my dad means is that after you return to Shushan, you can come to the company and talk to him face to face. If you agree, he will directly test the data and make the most suitable martial arts shoes for you." "Okay, I'll be back in Shushan in the afternoon." "When will your dad be in the company these days?" Lu Qing decided to listen to the specific terms. "Well, my dad will be on a business trip tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. He's in the company today. How about you go to see him before 6 p.m.? Wu Ting asked tentatively. "Okay, send me the address. I'll let you know when I go out," Lu Qing said after thinking about it. Wu Ting smiled and said, "Yes, Sir Lu." After hanging up the phone, Lu Qing looked at Yan Zhika who was beside him. He didn't need to repeat himself. The girl already knew what was going on. She pursed her lips and said with a smile, "You already have an endorsement contract. My Qing is so awesome. I don't know the specific conditions, but I guess the price won't be too high." Lu Qing was happy, but he still kept his mind. With his current strength and level, it was true that he could not get a good price. But for him, who had an unstable income every year, it was a good supplement. Yenjika rolled her eyes and said with concern, "Even if it's a good deal, don't rush to sign the contract. Take it back and let the lawyer have a look first, in case there's a trap. Well, not many people dare to cheat you, but some people are rascals. They're just a pile of sh*t. Even if they can't cheat you, they can still disgust you." "Yes, Coach Yen," Lu Qing answered happily. Yenjika pursed her lips and smiled. She suddenly sighed and said, I can't buy you martial arts shoes in the future. No, I'll only wear them in the competition. For training, the Love brand is still the best. I've only worn the first pair of martial arts shoes you gave me a few times. It's still brand new. Lu Qing took the opportunity to show off. Yenjika smiled and looked out of the window slightly proudly. It took only a little more than an hour to go from Gaofen to Shushan by train. They soon saw the familiar scenery. The girl also received a call from Empress Dowager. They deliberately chose this train to arrive at the same time as the arrival time of one of the high-speed trains from Songqing to Shushan. Okay, we'll be there soon. Yenjika hung up the phone and watched Lu Qing unload the luggage. Her eyes became gentle and she reached out to help him tidy up his clothes. After returning to Shushan, they would be busy with the new year. Except for morning exercises, they would have less time to see each other. After getting off the train, they reluctantly parted at the arrival hall. Lu Qing carried the luggage and went out of the station. He replied to the girl's message and then called his mother. Mom, I'm here. Qi Fang's background was very noisy. She said in a loud voice, Your dad and I are in the renovation business. We don't have time to buy groceries. You can go to the market by yourself and buy whatever you want. I'll cook for you when I come back. Alas, the new year is coming and the renovation workers are all thinking about home. You have to keep an eye on them and try to get the water and electricity ready before the new year. My dear mother. I've just come back and I'm already being ordered around. Lu Qing laughed and shook his head, agreeing. After a long time of careful selection, Qi Fang finally chose a house of 130 square meters. It had 3 bedrooms, 2 living rooms, and 2 bathrooms. It also came with a free entrance and a balcony. The total cost was more than 550,000 yuan after taxes and fees. Because it was the full payment, except for the 400,000 yuan Lu Qing gave, the family was basically emptied. After 2 months, they finally had enough money to do the water and electricity. Qi Fang, who had been bullied by borrowing money, didn't want to try again if it wasn't necessary. Lu Qing got on the bus and staggered back to the neighborhood. Along the way, the uncles and aunties he met all greeted him warmly, saying things like, Oh, Qing has made a name for himself. They praised him for remembering his parents' kindness and forking out money to buy a house for his family. Looking at the envious and sighing neighbors, Lu Qing only had one thought in his mind. That was, how long has my mom been bragging about her son buying a house? How widely has she spread the news? When he approached the doorway, he met another acquaintance, Wang Su's father. Hello, Uncle Wang. Lu Qing greeted him politely. Wang Su's father's body was a little hunched, and his hair was very white. He looked like he was in his 60s or 70s. He looked at Lu Qing and laughed. Qing, you're on vacation. You've done well. Your parents are enjoying life. Uncle Wang, don't say that. It's good enough to believe half of my mom's words. Lu Qing scolded his mother. It's good enough to believe half of it. Wang Su's father sighed with emotion. He walked out of the unit and turned to the group of old men playing chess. Looking back, Lu Qing watched his father's back disappear into the distance. He sighed with mixed feelings in his heart. When people take the wrong path, they're not the only ones who get hurt. Now that the limelight is completely over, I'll ask Uncle Xing to introduce me to visit Wang Su in prison. After calming himself down, he returned home, put down his backpack, picked up the basket, and went to the market. The last time he went there alone was when he was in the 5th grade of primary school. He didn't go there to buy groceries, but to find his mother. I'm a little nervous thinking about going to buy groceries by myself. Lu Qing sent a message to Yenjika with a smile. Yenjika sent an emoji with half of her mouth covered and whispered, I haven't been to the market before, then I'm better than you. Lu Qing sent an emoji with arms akimbo. Humph, do you know how to bargain? Yenjika asked angrily. Nope. Do you know how to distinguish the quality of the meat? You should be able to tell a little. Can you tell if the food is watered? Nope. Can you pick out the good quality of the food? Nope. Lu Qing felt very guilty. He found that the identity of youth tournament champion was completely useless in the market. Can you tell if it's wild or domesticated? Yenjika asked persistently. Lu Qing replied with a text emoji, annoyed and amused at the same time. Classmate, you've killed the conversation. Ha ha ha. Yenjika sent an emoji of laughing. Hurry up and buy groceries. I'm waiting for your battle report. After entering the market, Lu Qing walked nimbly around the stands and randomly chose a pork stall. He asked the fierce-looking stall owner, "How much is this pork rib?" "Well, I want to eat winter melon and pork rib soup tonight." After a fruitless bargaining, he looked at the stall owner who was chopping the pork rib and asked, "Can I pay with my mobile phone?" "Yes, scan my QR code." The stall owner pointed at something on the side. "It's so convenient to pay with mobile phone. I don't have to bring cash or change." Lu Qing scanned the QR code. When the phone recognized the QR code, he suddenly found that the stall owner's name was Past Events in Dreams with the Wind. So artistic. He looked up at the fierce-looking stall owner in astonishment. Looking at the shiny oil on his hand, he couldn't believe that such an artistic name belonged to him. Okay. Lu Qing paid the bill mechanically. The stall owner packed the pork rib and wiped his hands. He took a look at his phone and said, "Yes, received." It's really him. Lu Cheng's mouth twitched. He put the pork rib into the basket and went to another stall. After that, he met the fishmonger named Love You Forever and the vegetable seller named Abandoned Master. He refreshed his worldview and shared these things with Yenjika as jokes. At 3:30 p.m., he went out again after buying groceries and called a taxi according to the address given by Wu Ting. Chapter 349. Pingle District, Ingjin Building. When Lu Qing entered the lobby of the newly built office building, he enjoyed the attention of the security guards because he still looked like a student. However, he didn't care about it. Instead, he looked around with interest and observed the people in the office. He found that most of them were not wearing suits or high-heeled dresses. Most of them were wearing down jackets and overcoats. It was not time to get off work yet. When he entered the elevator, it was not crowded. On the left, there were two men talking about business. On the right, there was a girl with straight hair carrying cups of milk tea and cakes. The smell of perfume made him pinch his nose. If I didn't get the Jin Dan and didn't walk on the path of martial arts, maybe this would be my daily environment. Lu Qing sighed secretly. When he walked out of the elevator on the 10th floor, he saw the sign on the opposite wall. Zoji Martial Arts Equipment Company, Limited, it's here. He turned left and came to the door. He saw a girl with long hair playing with her phone in boredom. Hello. He tried to call her. The girl at the front desk looked up and put down her phone quietly. She blurted out, "Who are you looking for?" As a receptionist of a company, she had a beautiful appearance and a sweet smile. However, her eyes were dull. "I'm looking for Boss Wu." Lu Qing answered with a smile. "Boss Wu? Which Boss Wu?" The girl at the front desk came back to her senses and showed a puzzled expression. "Boss Wu, Wu Qinggui," Lu Qing said calmly. The girl at the front desk looked at him suspiciously and said, "Do you have an appointment?" The boy on the opposite side was pleasing to the eye. However, he looked younger than her and seemed to be a student. Why did he come to the company? To apply for an internship. But he didn't have to look for Boss Wu directly. Yes. Lu Qing nodded with a smile. Then, let me ask. The girl at the front desk picked up the phone and dialed a number with uncertainty. Hello, Boss Wu, a guest is looking for you. Yes, he's very young. Okay. She looked at Lu Qing in surprise while talking on the phone. He really did have an appointment with Boss Wu. She put down the phone and said with a sweet smile, Boss Wu asked you to wait for a while. Boss Wu didn't say why, so I don't know. Sure. Lu Qing put his hands in his pockets and looked around leisurely, admiring the layout of Zouji Company. At this moment, he heard a rush of footsteps coming from afar. He subconsciously turned his head and saw a thin but capable middle-aged man rushing over. Wu, CEO Wu. The girl at the front desk stood up straight and shouted timidly. CEO Wu actually came out to greet him personally. Who was this guy? Wu Qinggue was wearing a suit and tie. He had a square face, thick eyebrows, and big eyes. He walked up to Lu Qing with a smile, extended his arms, and warmly shook hands with him. You should have called me first when you arrived. Come to my office. Chief Wu, you're too polite. It's not like I don't know how to find my own way. Lu Qing said calmly as he followed Wu Qinggue into the building. They passed through many offices and arrived at the innermost office, leaving the receptionist standing there in a daze for a long time. That's the general situation. Tingting should have told you everything, right? In the office, at the reception sofa, Wu Qinggue repeated the endorsement. Then he picked up the teacup and took a sip to moisten his throat. Lu Qing smiled and said, Wu Ting did tell me, and I more or less understand what's going on. I just want to know the specific terms and conditions. Wu Qinggue asked his secretary to bring a sample contract and handed it to Lu Qing. The main part is 1 million for 3 years. You just need to wear the martial arts shoes provided by us when you participate in the competition. There are some additional terms and conditions, all of which are free money for you. Take a look first. Okay. Lu Qing flipped through the contract without batting an eyelid. 1 million for 3 years. It's much better than what I expected. I'm too embarrassed to talk about the price. In his opinion, it would be good enough for him to earn a few $100,000 a year endorsement fee. After all, most of the dance stage fighters didn't even have a chance. Plus, he didn't need to attend any events or shoot any commercials. He could earn money in passing. Lu Qing was dizzy from the professional terms and conditions as he flipped through the pages. It took him a lot of effort to understand. The additional terms mentioned by Wu Qinggue were indeed good stuff. The general idea was that he would get extra money according to the level of the competition he participated in. For example, in the university martial arts competition, the group matches were definitely not as popular as the quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals. Every step he took forward, the stage where he showed off his martial arts shoes would be fundamentally different. Therefore, the endorsement contract had different levels of rewards. According to the additional terms, the contract could be increased to more than 10 million for 3 years. However, Lu Qing felt that it was impossible to achieve because the biggest reward was to enter the top 32 of the 5 title matches. How could it be possible? Which one of the top 32 of the 5 title matches wasn't a physical invulnerability expert? According to his strength and current estimation of the speed of improvement, there was still a good chance that this contract could be increased to 1.5 million for 3 years. Lu Qing put down the paper in his hand and pondered. Boss Wu, can I take the contract back and take a look at it? I'll give you an answer in 2 days. That's right. I'm tempted. I'll go back and find a lawyer to study it. It's definitely the right choice to ask senior sister for advice. No problem. You can write down my email address and send it to me directly if you have any comments on the contract. Wu Qingui agreed without hesitation. He picked up a pen and paper and wrote down an email address. After the discussion, he stood up and said with a smile, "Let me show you around my company. This is the core of my business recently. I'll help you measure the accurate data later so that it'll be convenient for you to customize martial arts shoes suitable for your strength." Okay. Lu Qing didn't refuse. Under Wu Qinggui's guidance, he visited the design department and other places. Finally, he entered an office with a sci-fi design. This can be used to measure your strength. With this, it'll be easier for you to do the following things. Wu Qinggui instructed a professional designer to measure the length and width of Lu Cheng's feet while pointing at the silver-white metal platform inlaid on the ground. After the designer finished, he smiled and raised his chin. Go and try it. Just stand on it and exert your full strength. Lu Qing hesitated. Will it be damaged? Even I feel scared of my current explosive strength. Of course not. This is good stuff. I've asked a few professional ninth pin and mighty ones of Dan's stage to test it. Wu Qinggui smiled casually. Lu Cheng was still worried. Is it really okay? No problem. It's my fault if it breaks. Wu Qinggui laughed. Okay. Lu Qing put on his socks and stepped on the silver-white metal platform. The technician adjusted the equipment and said, "It's done. You can start now." Under Wu Qinggui's expectant gaze, Lu Qing took a deep breath to balance his qi, blood, spirit, and force. Then, he spurted out his Dan force and pushed it against his feet. Clang! At the entrance of Zoji Company, the girl at the front desk felt dizzy and found that her feet were shaking. Earthquake! She was shocked and ran out. She saw her colleagues rushing out of various offices. At this time, the shaking had stopped. Everyone looked at each other for a few seconds. Go back, go back. Don't make any noise. The girl at the front desk calmed down and waved her hand. Similar scenes were happening on every floor of Yingjin building. In the test room, Lu Cheng looked at the broken silver-white metal platform and looked up innocently. It seems to be broken. It's not just seems, it's real. It's completely broken. Wu Qinggui's mouth was half open and his eyes were wide open as if he saw an alien. Is this the explosive strength of a professional sixth pin? It's like an earthquake just now. Boss Wu, you've been looking for professional eighth pin fighters of Dan's stage, right? Lu Qing pushed the blame. Yes, yes. Wu Qinggui came back to his senses and smiled bitterly. This thing is useless. It's mine, it's mine. He's almost at the inhuman stage. Lu Qing looked at his feet again and asked curiously, "Did you get any data?" "No." The technician said with a sad face. Wu Qinggui calmed down and smiled. It's almost time to get off work. Let's go for a meal. It's my first day back home. I have to accompany my parents. Boss Wu, next time. Lu Cheng was still a little guilty. Okay. Wu Qinggui didn't insist. Lu Qing went back home and talked with Coach Yen for a while. Then he called his senior sister Shi Yuejian and told her about it. He took a picture of the contract and sent it to her according to her instructions. When it was dark, Shi Yuejian called back. "Little junior brother, there's no problem with this contract. It's just that the term is a little long. After 3 years, you'll have graduated from college and will be preparing for the top professional competitions. Your value will be completely different. It's a loss. Let's sign it for 2 years. 700,000 yuan for 2 years. If you feel embarrassed, let's sign it 2+1. After 2 years, they will have priority, but the conditions must be similar to others. Okay, thank you, senior sister. Lu Qing said happily. At this time, the door opened. Qi Fang and Lu Jisheng came back, looking tired. Cheng, what are you talking about? Qi Fang asked casually while changing her shoes. Lu Qing smiled. A big contract. A big contract. Qi Fang smiled carelessly and walked into the kitchen. What kind of big contract could there be for a competition and prize money? Lu Qing didn't explain. He planned to surprise his mother when the deal was done and the renovation cost was subsidized. Hee, I know how hard it is for your mother to do the renovation work. Lu Jisheng sat down and leaned on the sofa. Lu Qing glanced at the kitchen and said, then let's go out and eat. Let's go out and eat. As soon as he finished speaking, Qi Fang shouted in the kitchen, what kind of ribs did you buy? Just ribs. Lu Qing answered blankly. What's the difference between ribs? Qi Fang was both amused and annoyed. Can't you pick a better place? You can eat it yourself if you have good teeth. Lu Qing, the champion of the youth tournament and the one who was negotiating the million-yuan contract, blinked and felt a little wronged. How would I know what place it was? Chapter 350. Ha 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 ha. Even though I don't understand, I still want to laugh at you. Yanjika replied to Lu Cheng's grievance about the pork ribs. Lu Qing tilted his head and replied with an emoji of biting a handkerchief, I came here with such high hopes and expectations, but you, all right. Let's go to the supermarket and buy the best ones. Yanjika replied with a snickering emoji. Why do I feel like you're still gloating? Lu Qing replied with an emoji of touching his chin. Hee. Don't mind the details. Yanjika replied with an emoji of a flash of light in her eyes. Just like that, Lu Qing flirted with Kuan QQ while chatting with his father, Lu Jisheng. He also helped his mother, Qi Fang, while waiting for dinner to come. When it was almost 7:00, Lu Qing picked up a piece of pork rib, dipped it in sauce, and chewed it off with his excellent teeth. What a delicious pork rib! Why did Mom dislike it? Lu Jisheng thought of something. He put down his chopsticks and took a sip of wine. Qing, you may have to go back to your hometown to worship your ancestors in a few days. Go back to your hometown to worship your ancestors? Lu Qing was confused. What did he mean by going back to his hometown? Weren't Grandpa's parents buried in the Zhaoyushan cemetery in the north of the city? Didn't he sweep the graves during the summer vacation? Lu Jisheng looked at his son's expression and chuckled. Go back to your hometown to worship your ancestors? You haven't been there before. It's in Qingfu. Lening City, Qingfu County. Lu Qing suddenly understood. Oh. Grandpa's hometown. He didn't think of it as his hometown at all. He was born in Shushan and grew up in Shushan. He spent his first 18 years in Shushan. Shushan was his real and spiritual hometown. The Lu family was not native to Shushan. Lu Debong was born in Qingfu County, Luning City, next door. When he was 20 years old, he came to the factory in Shushan City to recruit workers. From then on, he settled down and started a family. Later, he even brought his parents here. By the time Lu Qing was born, his great-grandparents had passed away and were buried in the local area. He rarely visited his relatives and neighbors in Qingfu. Lu Debong had gone back to Qingfu twice in the years before and after his retirement. Later, when he got older, he didn't want to travel anymore. That's right. Your grandfather has been dreaming about his childhood a few times recently. He feels like his ancestors are reminding him that it's time to pay his respects. Homesickness. Besides, you're successful now. He definitely wants to pay his respects. Lu Jisheng shook his chopsticks. If I don't settle down in Shushan in the future, will I often remember and dream of this place when I'm old? Lu Qing was touched by her words and asked himself this question. He felt that the answer was yes, unless he could cut off his entire childhood and most of his teenage years. He could forget those difficult but definitely beautiful times. But now, even if he went out to study for half a year, he would often miss home in Shushan. Well, I really don't have any impression of Qingfu. I'll just take it as a 2-day trip with my grandparents. Lu Qing shook his head and smiled. He was completely in the dark about his relatives and the situation over there. Qi Fang ate a piece of winter melon and sneered. Your dad doesn't have any impression of it either. He only went back 4 or 5 times. The last time he went back was not long after we got married. Yeah, I only remember there was a river and a grave mountain. When I gave birth to you, I said I would take you back. But I forgot when I was busy. Lu Jisheng chuckled. I heard that they are talking about revising the genealogy. Every family has to pay a lot of money. If they don't pay, they won't let them enter the genealogy. What kind of society are we living in now? What does it matter if we don't enter the genealogy? He just wants to cheat money. Qi Fang rambled on. Well, the old people really like that. Lu Jisheng didn't care much. So many years had passed since he didn't have a genealogy. Lu Qing listened to them like he was listening to gossip. He planned to search for food or specialties in Qingfu and bring some for his little fairy. If he couldn't, he would try it and take her for a trip. Thinking of this, he was curious about his grandfather's hometown. Lu Qing ate a mouthful of rice and wondered, is the whole family going? There are so many people. It will be troublesome to buy tickets. It should be the whole family. Just rent a few cars and the driver's food and accommodation. Lu Jisheng said slowly. It was obvious that the Lu family had discussed it several times. Okay then. Lu Qing was relieved and didn't worry about it anymore. At that time, he would just be an accompanying member of the younger generation. He just needed to eat and drink and worship the ancestors. There was no need to worry. After talking about the ancestral worship for a while, Lu Jisheng's phone vibrated several times. He picked it up and said to Qi Fang with a smile, Old Zhao asked us to have tea and play cards this weekend. Okay. Qi Fang agreed readily. She looked up at Lu Qing and said, Your uncle Zhao has been saying that the two families should get together. Since you are on holiday, why don't you come with us this weekend? Uncle Zhao. Lu Qing was a little confused. Who is this? Why can't I remember him? Lu Jisheng took a sip of wine and said with a smile, Haven't you met him? Zhao Zijuan, your dad's childhood friend. His daughter and your brother went on a blind date. Hey, the blind date didn't work out, but we are friends again. Oh, him. Lu Qing thought of the scene when he met Mr. and Mrs. Zhao at Director Xing's house. He didn't know what to say, so he just smiled and said, It depends. Maybe something will happen. After all, I am the coach of the Shushan preliminaries team. It's winter vacation. What are you busy with? Qi Fang nagged. By the way, Fatty Guo also wants to invite us as guests. Humph, why didn't I see him so enthusiastic before? He changed his attitude after seeing you win the youth tournament. Guomin, Lu Jisheng's big boss. That's not it. Lu Qing criticized his mother's judgment. Guomin should have started to change after he recognized him. Hey, Qing, Fatty Guo always said something about you protecting him. What's the situation? Lu Jisheng frowned and asked. Back then, there was a fugitive who fled to Shushan. Because of my master, I was more familiar with the police, so I was asked to help out. I stayed overnight at the Guo family's house. Lu Qing gave a brief explanation. As expected, Lu Jisheng and Qi Fang didn't think there was anything wrong with it. They both thought that Fatty Guo was really afraid of death and that their son's social circle was getting wider and wider. After dinner, Lu Qing shared all these things with Yan Zhike. The two of them excitedly discussed the specialties and delicacies of Qingfu Mansion and the great ancestors of Qingfu Mansion. Unfortunately, Lu Cheng's family was ordinary and had no illustrious past. However, there was an outstanding person in this generation, the provincial youth tournament champion Lu Qing. After chatting for a while, Lu Qing suddenly received a message from Jiang Fei. Cheng, I have something to ask you. Fatty Jiang sent an "I admire you the most" emoji. What is it? Aren't you coming back the day after tomorrow? Lu Qing asked. Fatty Jiang smiled embarrassedly and said, yes. I just want to ask you what's so fun in Shushan. I have a few classmates coming over to play for 2 days. Lu Qing laughed and said in the tone of little Ming, you are not from Shushan. Why are you asking me? I know where the good food is. I like to stay at home. You and Yan Zhike often go out, so you definitely know where the fun places are. Jiang Fei said shamelessly. Lu Qing snickered and said, I know. We often go to one place. Where? Jiang Fei asked. Lu Qing sent an evil smile and said, the library. The place we go the most when we are dating. Fatty Jiang was speechless and said, I take you to the library for a trip. Ha! Lu Qing was very happy to tease him and said jokingly, there are girls in your classmates, right? Otherwise why are you so serious? Fatty Jiang scratched his head and said, yes, there are. One of them brought his girlfriend and his girlfriend brought her best friend. It's like a trip. It's not because he likes her best friend, but because he wants to know more girls. Maybe he will be introduced to his girlfriend. Not bad, very practical. Lu Qing smiled and joked, then take them to Shushan scenic spots. Climb the mountains, visit the temples and Taoist temples. When you come back, show them your specialty and take them to eat and drink. That's it. Jiang Fei asked for confirmation. It's only 2 days. What else do you want? Lu Qing laughed and said, they are probably here for the scenic spots. That's true. Jiang Fei finally made up his mind. The next morning, Lu Qing and Yan Zhike finished their morning exercises and ate breakfast that they had missed for a long time. Because Yan Zhike had family activities, they parted at the entrance of her neighborhood at 8:30 a.m. Back home, Lu Qing said that he would accompany his mother to do some decorations to fulfill his filial piety. Unfortunately, there was no one in the house. Those who worked had gone to work, and those who were busy had gone to work. I'm the only one who has nothing to do. Lu Qing laughed at himself. After thinking for a while, he changed his clothes, took the key, the medicine soup and other things and went to Gushan Martial Arts School. He planned to use the strength training gymnasium and the venue to continue his training. In addition, he heard from Qin Rui that the Shushan Preliminaries team would have a friendly competition with the Tiangao City Preliminaries team in the morning in Gushan Martial Arts School to prepare for the preliminaries after the new year. He could take this opportunity to watch. The entrance of Gushan Martial Arts School was very quiet. The girls at the front desk were looking inside, as if they were expecting something. Lu Qing didn't greet them and walked in slowly. He saw that several partitions had been removed and a standard competition field was set up in the middle. The disciples of the martial arts school and other spectators sat cross-legged around it, whispering to each other as they watched the fight. Lu Qing bent down and casually patted someone's shoulder, asking him to squeeze to the side to make room for him. That person turned his head and looked at him. At first, he was at a loss, but then he showed a look of surprise. Lu Qing didn't know who he was. He smiled and put a finger to his lips, telling him not to be excited and not to make a sound. Chapter 351. Seeing Lu Cheng's action, the excited and pleasantly surprised person immediately shut his mouth and swallowed the word brother. He nodded repeatedly to show that he understood and moved to the side to make space for Lu Cheng. Lu Cheng greeted him with a smile, took a step forward, and smoothly sat down cross-legged. He looked at the field and happened to see Qin Rui fighting with a fighter of professional ninth pin. Crisp and muffled sounds echoed from time to time. "Brother Lu, when did you come back?" The person next to him asked in a low voice, as if he was doing something secretive. Lu Cheng turned his head and looked at the ordinary-looking person, but he couldn't remember who he was. He could only smile and say, "I just arrived yesterday. I wanted to borrow the strength training gym. There was a competition, so I thought I'd take a look." He lifted the bag in his hand as proof. Oh. The person next to Qin Haodong was stunned. Looking at the confrontation in the field, he said with obvious envy, "Senior brother Qin's strength has improved so fast after he succeeded in meditation. In such a short time, his strength is already close to that of a professional ninth pin. His body condition is very good. If he can make up for the shortcoming of visualization, he'll definitely improve quickly." Lu Cheng smiled with satisfaction. Since July, when he had given pointers and corrected Qin Rui's meditative state, after 4 months of training and repeated victories over anxiety and frustration, he had finally succeeded in meditating, crossing a very important threshold and obstacle on the path of martial arts. When visualization could be used in actual combat with his 1.9 meters, thick body, long arms and legs, and outstanding strength, it would be relatively easy for him to become a professional ninth pin. The person next to him nodded and said with a flattering smile, "Senior brother Qin can't be compared to you. Will you work part-time in the martial arts club this time?" I want to book a time for personal instruction." If it was yesterday morning, Lu Cheng might have agreed. But now he just smiled and said, "There are too many things to do during the winter vacation. I don't have time for part-time work. If you have any questions, it's better to ask Qin Rui directly. If you can't solve it, I'll come over when I'm free after training. There's no need to make it so formal." Last night, he sent his opinion on the modification of the contract to Wu Qinggui and waited for him to confirm it when he came back from his business trip. Good. The person beside him nodded happily. He also knew that it was impossible for Lu Cheng, who had entered the 6th pin, to work part-time in the martial arts club. Martial artists who were not rich could not afford to be taught by masters of this level alone. In the center of the field, Qin Rui was fully displaying his strength. He was locked in a battle with the warrior with a mustache. The referee was an old man with gray hair and deep wrinkles. He should be a senior who retired to Shushan. The scenery in Shushan was beautiful, and the air quality was good. Many local martial artists would come back from time to stay for a while when they were old. Amidst the crisp sound, Qin Rui seized an opportunity. Relying on the advantage of his figure, he barely won a move against his opponent. Great! Lu Cheng applauded and cheered, just like the other disciples and students of the martial arts club. This was what the so-called melon-eating crowd was like. Yes, Qin Rui's improvement was indeed great, worthy of applause. Qin Rui shook his fist with satisfaction and then saluted to his supporters. He walked to the other side and sat beside Monk Wenguang, accepting his comments and guidance in a low voice. The next round was between Jiang Shuiyan from Tiangao City and Zhou Xingyao from Shushan. Both of them were close to the level of professional ninth pin. Once again, they were evenly matched. At the climax of the battle, Jiang Shuiyan suddenly broke out and made a series of fierce and smooth attacks. She forced Zhou Xingyao to the edge and won the match. Great! Lu Qing applauded again. She was able to perfectly combine fierce and smooth attacks with the control of her body refining state. It was enough to show that she had a good foundation in martial arts. This time, his cheers were no longer as silent as before. Instead, they were abruptly interrupted by the quiet and regretful reaction of the supporters of the martial arts club. His voice clearly echoed around the venue, attracting the attention of many people. Jiang Shuiyan was the first to look over. She was surprised that the audience of Shushan City would applaud for her. The audience here was not the usual kind. They were either disciples and students of the martial arts club or friends and relatives of the contestants. They were the kind of people who would definitely side with their friends and relatives. It was very difficult for them to cheer for the opponent. When their eyes met, she saw a young man who was not very good-looking but clean and pleasing to the eye. She nodded to him happily, thanking him for his honesty and frankness. Lu Qing smiled and applauded in response. Not bad, the atmosphere in Shushan City is very good. That young man is very straightforward and honest. I like. The martial artists of Tiangao City's preliminaries looked over and whispered to each other happily and excitedly. The disciples and students of the martial arts club were quite surprised. They looked over and saw a familiar figure. All the words in their mouths were swallowed back. Lu Qing. He's back. Chairman Wei Renjia and Qin Rui were surprised at first, then delighted. However, their reactions were drowned out by the sound of the referee announcing the start of the next round. Qin Rui stood up in the midst of the fierce fight. He walked to Lu Cheng's side from behind and squeezed in. He smiled and said, "You didn't say you were coming yesterday. My mom abandoned me. I had to come and join in the fun and borrow the strength training gym." Lu Qing answered casually. He chuckled and said, "A scholar who has been away for 3 days must be looked at with new eyes. I was a little surprised just now." "Hee, thanks for your guidance. Master Wingguang is also very helpful," Qin Rui said modestly, unable to hide his self-satisfaction. Lu Qing put his hands on his knees and watched the match seriously. He said, "When it comes to martial arts, it's ultimately up to you. If a cow doesn't drink water, it's useless to force it." "Not bad. You can fight for the professional 9th pin certificate in April." "Oh right, how many exchanges are you going to fight?" He just asked casually. Chairman means to fight about 10 rounds and try to fight with the teams from the surrounding cities so that everyone can gain more practical experience. Next up is Fenhu City's preliminaries team and Lenning City's bat team. This team is very strong. They have a Dan stage fighter and made it to the 2nd stage of the preliminaries last year. Unfortunately, compared to the teams from the provinces with strong martial arts, they're much weaker and didn't make it to the next stage. Qin Rui said excitedly. Okay. Lu Qing didn't pay much attention and just took it as a casual chat. The exchange was different from the official competition. This time, there were a total of 8 rounds. The main force and substitutes of both sides were given the opportunity to fight in pairs. No matter who won or lost, they would leave the arena. At 10:30, the exchange ended. Shushan City got a good score of 5-3. Wei Renjia was very happy. He talked for a long time with the coach of Tiangao City and invited them to lunch. When the team of Tiangao City entered the locker room to take a shower and rest, he and Monk Wingguang turned to Lu Qing and said warmly, "Lu, do you want to have lunch together?" "Chairman, there's no need. There are too many people and I don't know them well. It's boring." Lu Qing expressed his thoughts frankly. "Okay, I'll treat you to a good meal later." Wei Renjia was not angered by his rejection. Instead, he chuckled and said, "Initially, I wanted to advise you to participate in a few preliminaries to ensure everyone's safety, but you've improved too quickly. I'm too embarrassed to ask you again." A ranked 6 martial artist participating in the preliminaries, isn't that bullying? Ba. Benefactor Wei is right. A 6th pin fighter can be the main force in the North-South regional competition. He can even be a substitute in the advancement competition. Monk Wingguang looked at Lu Qing with a warm smile and sized him up from head to toe. The preliminaries were the 4th level of professional competition, the lowest level. The 3rd level was called the North-South Regional Preparatory Competition. In this level, the clubs or teams of the upper-middle level usually had a high-ranked Inhuman Dan stage fighter as the main force and a 6th pin or 7th pin fighter as the main force. In the 2nd level of the advancement competition, the forces of the upper-middle level had no or only one physical invulnerability expert. They had an Inhuman as the main force and a 6th pin or 7th pin fighter as the substitute. In other words, even if Lu Qing graduated now, he wouldn't have to worry about not having a place to stay. Lu Qing was a little scared by Monk Wingguang's weird look. He laughed dryly and said, "I'd better focus on the university martial arts competition first." After a few words of greeting, he said goodbye and went upstairs to the strength training gymnasium. Qin Rui followed him and asked with concern, "What are you going to do for lunch? Do you want me to pack something for you?" No, I'll just have a meal nearby. I still have to continue my training later." Lu Qing shook his hand. "You still have training in the afternoon?" Qin Rui asked in surprise. "It's fine anyway." Lu Qing sighed and laughed in a low voice. Peng Liyun is not that easy to catch up with, Peng Liyun is not that easy to catch up with. Qin Rui listened in a daze. Watching Lu Cheng's back disappear at the entrance of the stairs, he suddenly felt that his previous complacency was not worth mentioning. Cheng is already sprinting to the top of his age group in the country. He's really not in the same world as us. In the locker room, Jiang Shuiyan came out of the shower. While drying her hair with a dry towel, she was typing on her phone. "Sister Shuiyan, you fought really well today." Huang Bing, the substitute player, gave her a thumbs up. "Yeah, the audience in Shushan was shocked. They even applauded you." Tan Digeo, the main force player, echoed. The audience laughed and cheered, making Jiang Shuiyan both happy and embarrassed. She said modestly, "That guy probably applauded because he thought I was pretty good looking." At this point, her heart skipped a beat. She frowned slightly and said hesitantly, "Why do I feel that guy is a little familiar? Tan Digeo and Huang Bing were lost in their memories. The more they thought about it, the more they felt that they had seen that guy applauding somewhere before. After a dozen seconds, Huang Bing suddenly opened his eyes wide. He matched that guy with a figure in his memory and blurted out, Lu Qing." For martial arts fans and TV viewers, once the craze passed, they would soon forget the champion of the provincial youth tournament. Without continuous promotion, they would at most have an impression of him. But in the martial arts circle of the province, he was definitely a figure that could not be ignored. Lu Qing. Hearing Huang Bing's words, the figure in Jiang Shuiyan's mind suddenly became clear. She said in surprise and joy, "It's him. Yes, it's him. It's really him. He actually watched such a low-level competition." Lu Qing. Tan Digeo and the others looked at each other to confirm. They couldn't help but be silent for a while. After a long time, Tan Digeo said with emotion, "Shuiyan, even Lu Qing applauded for you. You don't have to be so modest." Jiang Shuiyan raised her head slightly and couldn't help but smile. "You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.